Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the show today. This is, of course, Night Owls, and it is Papa's Day. And
It
just be
sure is.
it sure is. And just before we came in, we were talking about pride. And what are you proud of? I know a lot of things these days that in the West, particularly America, you're not allowed to be proud of. And that certainly includes fathers. You can't be proud of
Yeah.
those. And I was, as we were talking about it, I was just thinking of a long list of things you're not allowed to be proud of. And it's very odd. I thought maybe we should take this month back. Maybe June should be about what you're proud of in your life. Maybe it's your little red bicycle or what have you.
Uh, yeah, yeah. I like that idea. I,
Yeah.
I like I like the idea of it would almost be like a month of gratitude of Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow. What a great idea. But you're not allowed to be proud, which is a very interesting concept, I think. We keep hearing it over and over and over, and I'm really wondering when the other half or the other 80% or whatever it is they are realize that this has nothing to do with empowering the weak. I'm just
Well, I
curious
think
how
that's
long it's going to
starting.
take. Yeah.
I think that's starting. I guess today, um, I don't remember the name of the acronym, but basically the organization that regulates swimming, right, competitive swimming, has decided that no more male to female transgenders can compete with the girls
Yeah. Well,
because it's
obviously.
obviously not fair. Obviously not fair. Uh,
Did we need an official announcement for that?
apparently, yes.
Apparently.
But I think that's a sign, hopefully, that the pushback is growing against this weird. It's just weird.
Mm.
Like most people don't care, genuinely don't care until you put it in their face all the time,
Yeah.
and then it's just annoying more than anything, and they're just annoyed by it. It's not even hatred, it's just annoyance. You're
Yeah. No.
constantly talking about this thing just all the time that I don't care about. Imagine that. Imagine you're sitting in a room with some guy and he starts talking about snails. And he just won't shut the hell up about snails for like 3 hours in a row every time you're in this room. How annoying that would get,
Yeah.
and how annoyed you would be. And that's literally what it is. That's all it is at this point. I think most people are just annoyed, and it's that annoyance is turning into frustration. And that's where it gets dangerous because frustration quickly becomes anger. Quickly.
It does. And
And
we used to have several solutions for those.
yep.
We had the swirly, we had the wet willy, we had the wedgie. All of these were viable options, Grimlock.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you allowed to do any of these attitude correctors anymore?
No.
No,
Nope.
no. Even the
Mm-mm.
wedgie. That one's a good old classic.
I mean, you can, but
No, well.
You'll probably end up with charges for assault or battery, which is silliness to me, but I digress.
Oh, well, that's another issue. It's gone so far that these days you don't have the principal, or usually there was the vice principal just go and deal with it, whatever issue needs to be dealt with. Oh no, they call the police. The police are brought into schools. I mean, my God. I mean, unless you had an actual serious crime, like someone stabbed another student, or a gun came out, or some form of actual sexual assault. I mean, if something bad happened, I'm sure they would call the police, but otherwise they just kind of deal with it internally. But not now. Oh no, they call the cops quick.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
get
it's
that.
it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not a good situation. It's what happens when your society starts to degrade and we lose that very precious, very limited, can't be bought, can be sold resource known as trust.
Oh yeah.
And as that degenerates, which is what degeneracy means, by the way, as you lose trust in the commons of your society, you lose trust in each other.
Yeah.
And when you lose trust in each other, you resort to, well, excessive force to solve problems. When we had more trust in one another that we could have things like that or have let men settle things like men,
Sure.
society might have been a little bit more violent, but it was much more peaceful.
Well, excuse me. That's kind of, this idea of the policeman is
Yep.
extremely modern.
Yes.
I mean, like 20th century modern. Yeah, well, I guess the 19th century in certain places, but it depended on where you were. But it's certainly, within the past 200 years, police were just not a real thing. The community dealt with it, and that's why the mayor had, or governor or whatever had certain, departments of people to help deal with things like that. We used to deal with things internally. Here, and Happy Father's Day, by the way, everybody. Happy Father's Day, Grimlock. And
Um,
no, no, I do apologize.
Mm.
But like for instance, here in this village I live in, just give you an example. We have a little police officer sitting in a little station. He gets a house as well. Goes with this little teeny. I mean, it's literally like a taco kiosk size, his office, but he's got a house next to it. But he doesn't really get to do anything. He kind of goes to the school and talks to the kids sometimes. That's about it. So we usually get a pretty young person gets put here, like a police officer with a young family or something like that. Because here in the village we don't have any crime anyway. But when something questionable comes up, with they never call the cops. It's always dealt with internally here. Always.
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, well, it should. That's
That's
the way it
good though.
should be. The police should get involved when it's really way past the pale, right?
Right. Yeah. When
Yeah,
it's excessively violent, when somebody's actually
something
getting
really bad happens.
hurt. Yeah. Um, no, that's society. That is literally civilization.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's nothing else but a bunch of people who have decided this is the line, and they will enforce with force that line.
Well, let me.
Now, those
hold on.
lines move all over the place depending on where you're at in the
Right.
world and what group of people you're with. But that is all it is. It's just lines in the sand.
Well, let me show you the line here. We don't really have violence or actually any real crime, but we did. Well, this would be white collar crime. There was a lady, and she worked over at the Fisherman's Cooperative Bank right here in town, and it's a I guess it's a technically a chain of banks, but it's meant to help with fishermen, right, and their businesses and their family. And anyway, she was just a teller or something. She's worked over there, and she was skimming money so that she could go to the pachinko and gamble. Right
Ooh.
now, that would be criminal, right?
Mhm.
That's definitely fraud, right? But how did this little village deal with it? Well, of course they had a stern speaking to her, I am sure, and I guess she was released. I don't even know if I can guarantee that. I think she was released from the job. But they went and had a conversation with her parents, and they paid it off. Police were never involved, never called for real fraud at an actual bank. So
Interesting.
I thought that was a bit extreme. I would have called the police in that situation. I would have, but I just kind of shut up. I live here, but I don't get opinion. Just so you know.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and as you probably should, since you're
Yeah, I'm a
not
foreigner.
Japanese.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm a guest,
Yep.
and that's the thing that I've been other places and I've seen it too. But here in this culture, as xenophobic as it is, I see a lot of foreigners come over and they can't handle it more than a few years here, because especially the young ones, they just their opinion is unrequested and unwanted. Doesn't matter if you're right or not. They don't care, and why should they? This is a homogeneous
Yep.
country. You are a guest here. No matter, I will die and be buried in the mountain, Grimlock, and I shall be a guest the entire time. So Although to be fair, though, they all kind of consider me that they joke about that I'm Japanese now. I'm like, damn it, I'm an American. You
Been there,
fuck right off.
been there long enough. Been there long enough, huh?
Yeah, but it insults me though. It pisses me off. I ain't no fucking Japanese. God damn it. But whatever. Okay, one of us. All right.
I mean, you literally bought a mountain. I think that counts a little towards it.
Yeah, well, I have no. I think it's more that I've taken on responsibilities. Yeah, and Japanese appreciate that. You want to get in their good graces, take on responsibilities. Well, one thing they don't have here, and welcome everybody. Please go hit that share button, let people know that we're on, so they come and join us. But one thing they don't do here, which is takes a little getting used to, is how in America, and I'd say Europe is very similar, but it's very American thing. We have what we would call pay it forward, I guess. Whereas if you're doing stuff in the community, you're helping out people. It's not expected. You can't expect it or demand it, but usually you get some manner of reciprocity comes back at you, right?
That's
Right?
my favorite word.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of our way. You get
Yep.
zero reciprocity here. Zero.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Mm-hmm.
do charity things for decades, and it means nothing. And you know
Yep.
why, Grimlock? Would you like to guess why it doesn't work here? And in America, people would literally be pissed off. You know why, Grimlock?
Lay it on me. Wow.
Because you're expected to do that.
Yep.
Ooh, wow.
I have no problem with that.
No, neither do I. You're a citizen and you're expected to act like one. Wow. Damn.
Yep.
Where'd that
Yep.
come from?
I love it.
So do
I don't know where it came from. It probably came from a lot of people getting killed over a long period of time.
Probably.
And people said, you know what? How about we just not? And we all just kind of do our duty a little bit.
Right.
Do a little bit of a job so we don't have to kill each other. They're like, all right.
Well, that's it. It's duty, isn't it? Because you have because you have a life and you have safety and you have opportunity. You have food that is available, shelter, and all those kind of other things. And depending on the culture you live in, those are at different levels. And
Right.
if you're at a place that allows you to have those things in abundance, well, don't you have a duty, a responsibility to kind of give back to the society that is allowing you these things? Should you not, take care of responsibilities you have to that culture that has allowed you to live in such a way? I mean, it seems common sense to me, but I think it shows you one of the big problems we have in going on in most places around the world. This isn't even necessarily an American thing. Is this
Mm-hmm.
absolute level of entitlement and complete blindness to one's responsibilities or the objective duty you have to your country. America is the worst example of this because you have people that seem to scream on a daily basis that America was never great, and it's like, well, then
Yeah.
why do you live there?
Yeah.
Why are
Yeah.
you
Then why
there?
not leave? Why not leave?
What are you doing? If it's that
Um.
bad, you should find another home, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's just objectively retarded to say that. I don't even. By what metric? Because they were mean to black people for a while. Okay. So was everybody else.
And
Literally
so were the
everybody
black
else.
people. They were
Yeah.
part of
Still,
it.
they still are. So how is that your metric? If that's your only metric, then fine, you win. But that is a shit metric. I'm going to tell you right now because I hate to tell all these people who say that, and because of that reason, I hate to tell you they're not that damn important. No one group is. None. Zero. On the grand scale, grand calculus of history, one individual group is irrelevant.
Well, and back in those days, if you had some pilgrim saying America was never great, I would have to agree with them.
Right? Because it wasn't yet.
It wasn't. You got to get that shit done yourself, buddy.
But it's funny to me, Chester,
these
you were
days.
talking about basic civic duty, right? And obviously
Yeah,
Japan takes it,
basic.
and really most of Asia takes it to an extreme.
I think most countries, most people.
But Americans largely don't have that
No, it's
ingrained
odd.
into them.
I have it.
And
though.
it's to the point now. It's to the point now where you can't even get people to put shopping carts back, Chester. They just
What?
leave them. They just leave them. Yeah, just leave them out in the thing. So you got to either hit them, drive around them, or get out and put them back, move them so you can park.
So
Just basic civic duty to the people around you. Nope. Nope.
Well, what happened to the babushka councils? of the past.
I
Because
don't
I
know.
guarantee you, if you didn't put your cart back when I was a kid, there's a grandma somewhere. They'll pop up out of a goddamn bush and they'll say, "Put that back! What are you doing?"
What's wrong with you?
What
Uh,
happened to the
uh, the
babushkas?
term racism and hate crime, and of course, everybody has a camera in their pocket, and they twist every single negative interaction into some form of cause. You
Mhm.
see, so if say it's an old man, right, and he's like, "Hey, put your cart back." When we were growing up, that wouldn't be a big deal. Be like,
Yeah,
"All right, sorry, sir, didn't think about it."
yeah, I know.
Now it's some kind of racism
Got
or
caught.
sexism or something like that because that couldn't just be that you're an asshole. That couldn't be the answer. It has to be everybody else's fault, Chester.
Wow.
Everybody else is wrong, not you.
That sounds like a small thing, but that's a big deal, Grimlock. Not
Yeah,
putting
it's not
back the
good.
shopping cart is serious. It is. That's
I
just
see it every day.
chaos. Huh.
Yep. Every day. Every day it's chaos. Chaos in the shopping parking lots, the grocery store parking lots and whatever. And that's just a simple one. It's so apparent and so easy. It takes 10 seconds if you're not, in some way impaired.
Mhm.
It's such a simple one. And yet, so many people,
Uh,
thousands of people, even in my area, don't do it, refuse to do it.
it's weird. I mean, I can't even walk past a piece of garbage on the ground. I can't. I try.
Yep.
I'm definitely the type, and I thought I was normal, but I guess my wife says I'm not. But I'm the type that you're in the bathroom, right? You just finished your shower. You're all dried off. You're all brushed up. Teeth and cologne and all the stuff you do to get yourself ready to get out of the shower and get on with your day. And I always put the towel on the side of the washing machine, right?
Mhm.
Or in the basket. And if I put it on the side or I put it in the basket and it falls out onto the ground, I literally cannot walk away from it. I've tried. I have to. I mean, if I'll take a step and this overwhelming OCD takes over me, and I have to pick it up, right? And so I don't even understand that aspect of people just throwing things on the ground. It's like, why? One of the things they do here that at first, when typical loud American, right? When I came here, I complained a little bit, and I was like, what the hell is this? Da da da. Because here in Japan, good luck finding a trash can out in public. Go
Mm.
try to find it. And you know what that does? You know what that does, right? It forces people to put the trash in their pocket and take it home and deal with it themselves.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
interesting. And if you walk around the streets of Japan, it's fairly clean. I mean, I've seen cleaner places. The Canadians are a bit pedantic, or they used to be anyway.
Mm.
But it is a pretty clean place, even though there are no garbage cans anywhere.
That is interesting.
It is. Because as an American, we have trash cans everywhere. Right? The convenience of it, we take it for granted, but you have to think about how much does it cost to maintain that. People have the jobs that have to go deal with it, right? There's work involved. There's a scale of labor, and there's infrastructure
I
to
don't use
simply
them.
maintaining trash cans, right?
Yep.
Hmm.
And
Waste of,
every single one of these instances that we're talking about is interesting because a form of pride is the problem,
yeah,
whether it be narcissism, hubris, conceit, or pride in yourself or the place you live. If not your country, at least where you damn live.
yeah,
Don't shit where you eat. What are you
yeah.
doing?
I never understood that because there are certainly certain cultures that are bad about that. I never
Yep.
understood these places where there's literally just piles of garbage on the street and no one ever cleans them up. I mean, decades go by, right? And
Yep.
I'm talking to you, Southeast Asia and Africa in general. Yeah, you, because as troublesome as Jihad Jared is. Uh, uh, they you go to Middle East, see how clean that place is, right?
Right. And
Europeans
it's in
in
a damn
general,
desert for crying
in a
out loud.
damn desert. Europeans are fairly clean, right?
Yep. Yep.
Especially East Europeans. Now that's weird, right? but go
Yeah.
to some other places and see how absolutely disgusting it is. And I don't know how do you live in that environment? How do you allow it? Why is there garbage everywhere? India is really bad for that. And I guess it's this concept of, well, it's not my responsibility. It's not my problem. And
Yes.
boy, right there is the huge, huge, big red flag for me. But I
Hmm.
don't know, Grimlock, have we been old, crummangy, complaining men on Father's Day enough yet?
Nah,
No? More? Okay, fine.
nah.
But anyway, it is Father's Day, so happy to all the dads out there. Hopefully, you had some a good time today. Yesterday was mine. I didn't even remember it was Father's Day, although I did see signs at the stores that said Father's Day sale in English. But it's like that's really decoration, is what that is. But
Yeah.
the Japanese do love to commercialize anything, and they overdo it. You know how we have Valentine's Day, which is basically just a modern representation of the old Beltane, even though they said it comes from some saint named Valentine. What a bunch of dicks! It's just a modern mispronunciation of an old word, right? Beltane, right?
Hmm.
But we have that, and it's very different than it used to be. But here in Japan, not only do they have Valentine's Day, where the girls give candy and such to the boys, they have a month later in March 14th, they have what they call White Day, where the boys give to the girls. They've doubled up the commercialism here.
Smart.
Smart,
Smart.
smart, yeah. And Kentucky Fried Chicken made some money because now everybody eats chicken on Christmas, and they go get their little Christmas bucket from KFC. Yeah, smart. Japanese know how to take all the spirit out of it and just commercialize the hell out of it. They are really good at that. So, the problem is these days, when I first came here, a lot of girls were giving boys candy on Valentine's Day, younger people. But these days, the girls, they only give to each other. They don't give, the boys get nothing, right? Nothing. And of course, girls are more and more having less and less communication with the boys in schools. I have a bunch of young, junior high school kids that sit in front of me, right? My students and college kids too. Those are mainly boys, though. It's odd there that you don't get a lot of women in language studies. You would think you would, seeing as women are better at it anyway. But I asked, I said, you guys this is kind of weird, right? They're like, how is it weird? And I was like, this is a day for giving to love. It's a day of love, actual koi, not daisuki or ice day, koi, which means intimate love, romantic love, right? In Japanese, and you're giving it to girls, and I look at them sideways, and they get the joke, because it is creepy.
It is.
It
It
is
is a bit. Yeah. Yeah. Smidge.
a little bit, yeah.
Whole time
But
bit.
what did you get for Father's Day today, or what did you do today for Father's Day, Thundero?
Um, I didn't do much of anything. What we did, well, I did some things, but I'll leave that for me and my wife to discuss.
Ah, sure,
But
sure.
other than that, um, no, just celebrated the fact that I got my fence fixed finally. The price of lumber and everything kind of made that a little hard to do for a while. But
Uh-huh.
we got a little bit of a lull in that around here for some reason. So I went and bought some panels and fixed the back fence yesterday. So just hung out in my yard a little bit. It
Oh,
was nice. It's very
so
nice having
that's
having that task accomplished.
well, that is good, but that's why the wife was frisky yesterday. I was kind of wondering why. So she remembered, I guess. Oh, that's nice, Grimlock. What did you do for Father's Day, Grimlock? Did you talk to a father, or interact with someone, or anything with your
No,
significant other? Or...
no, called my dad, chit chatted with him for a little while, and you know, just basically shot the shit with Pop.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That there enough is worthy. I haven't spoken to my dad since my mom died, and that's been, I don't know, a couple of years.
Oof,
Not,
what
it's
you
not
doing, man? What are you doing?
Oh, I've never really been very communicative with my dad. He's he and I are a little bit different, Grimlock, just slightly. I'm an academic who never shuts up. and my father is literally a ninja assassin who doesn't speak.
Ah,
Yeah, I mean, So we're a touch different. When my mother was alive, of course, she would want to talk to me, so he would facilitate it, right? But yeah, we just don't have much in common. I don't think there's any, there's no angst or anxiety or anything like that involved. It's just we're just
hmm.
not very interested. We don't have the same likes. I mean, he likes the Dallas Cowboys for fuck's sake. I mean, honestly,
Tisk, tisk.
he
Tisk, tisk, tisk.
tisk America's team indeed, Dad. But no, I just we don't. There's no real emotion involved in it. We just what do we don't really have much to talk about. And like I said, the man doesn't speak much. He's really quiet.
Not a talkative man.
No, which is weird because I don't know much about the work he's done over his life. Because they don't really talk. Those guys, the actual soldiers, don't really talk about those things. But
Yeah.
unless they're amongst each other. But I do know that he was a Marine Recon platoon leader who then became a Pentagon. So what is that? That's Delta Force, I guess. Is that what they call the Pentagon Special Ops team that they lend out to everybody? I think it's Delta Force or something like that. He continued on, became a platoon or a team. I guess they used a different word, a team leader for them. So he must be able to speak. He
Yeah.
must be capable of it, I would think. But
Yeah.
I've heard very little words out of my dad in my entire life. You know,
That's
yeah. What
interesting.
is that? What they call it? I think it is Delta Force, isn't it?
Well, there is a Delta Force, but Delta Force was one that they denied existed for a very, very long time, and then they admitted it, and then they started making movies or something like that, or maybe they made the movies and then they admitted it. But regardless, right around that same time, remember the old Chuck Norris movies, Delta Force,
Yeah.
that came out, and yeah, Delta Force is a high-level Black Ops
Yeah.
force in the United
Yeah.
States military.
I think that's the right term. It's probably got a different name now, and I don't know what the name was. Basically, it's the Pentagon. People misunderstand. Of course, Hollywood screws things up. A lot of time, if the
No.
CIA or the NSA or NSS or even the FBI, if they have some wet work that needs doing, they don't really do it internally.
Mm.
Most of the CIA people are literally just analysts, sit behind a desk, right? They're not spies. The NSA would be much closer to a spy than a CIA. But if they need a wet work team, if they need an actual shooting team, the Pentagon has them, and they will lend them out to various other government departments. That's how America does it. So whatever that was called, whatever that thing is what he did. And I know that I guess somewhere in my middle teenage years, he must have retired because he was home a lot more.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't really know though because he never really talked about it. The only time I ever heard him talking about war stuff was when he would sit down with some of my uncles, and each one of them are all soldiers, right? And they would sit and talk about, war amongst each other. And I would, maybe sit beyond the door because if you get seen, they say get you, they shoo you away, right? And I would listen, So that's the only time I've ever heard him speak about things like that. So
Hmm. Interesting. My grandfather was the same way. He was a World War II vet.
mm,
Was in the Air Corps. Was some kind of sergeant. I can't remember what. But basically, he kept everything running. That was his job.
yeah,
And he wouldn't talk about it at all, except for the two people. If I would ask him, he'd tell me about it. Which I was a little kid, so it's not like I asked anything crazy.
right.
And his brother, my uncle Fritz. If he asked him, you could get him to talk. He could get him to talk about it. But other than that, he didn't really talk about it at all. Even to his son, who was also a veteran, and his one of my cousin, his other grandson, who was also a veteran.
Hmm.
He didn't open up about it. He saw some terrible things. He nearly died 9 times.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and he didn't want to really have a conversation about it too much. I did I don't remember what grade I was in, probably third or fourth, and I did like a report on him. We were supposed to do it on, somebody we knew who had done some stuff, basically. Usually a family member, but it didn't have to be a family member. But so I asked him, and he said, sure. And we just had a long conversation about his time over there and how much it affected him. And it affected him till the day he died. And
Sure.
it's pretty crazy stuff when you think about what some of these men go through, how incredibly strong you have to be to not break.
That is
Because
true.
a lot of them break. I think it's like 20% break in the first time they're in combat. Something
I
like
bet.
some ridiculously high number. They just won't fight. They refuse. They refuse to fight
Well, it's
because
a
they're just
fight or flight
terrified.
mechanism, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything fun about it. I mean,
No.
military has to learn to mitigate that, but yeah, I don't hold anything against that. But I don't know much. I know my mom had like a little, I don't know, you can call it a shrine on top of the dresser that had
Yeah.
a bunch of my dad's kind of medals and certificates and stuff. She kept a little teeny area, and I know there were 4 Purple Hearts there.
Damn.
That's a bit excessive.
A bit.
Yeah.
A bit.
But if you look at the man, he's got bullet holes in him. He's got grenade slashes across his body. He's got burns. I mean, he had his shirt off because the one time he actually visited us, they visited us because my mom wanted to, and he was changing in the because they were I had a big giant couch and they were sleeping on the pull-out bed, right? And
Mhm.
he was changing. My wife saw it for the first time, and she thought it was like Freddy Krueger. I mean, his body is
Jeez.
so busted up, dude.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is the dude, he literally still has metal in him that hasn't pushed
Oh yeah.
its way out. And I wonder what it's like for him to go through a metal detector.
Well, my uncle Tom, where I get my middle name from, he also had pieces of shrapnel in him
Yeah,
from Vietnam,
a lot of dudes do.
and yeah, every time it would go off. Every time, and he'd have to tell them, "I got shrapnel," and they just okay. Every time it happened.
Well,
Um,
because
it's
in the
crazy.
well, it is, but and there's a reason for it because in Korean War, they would get in there and try to dig it out. But they
Yep.
found that this is what I was told anyway. I haven't seen the statistics personally, but I've been told this. But they used to get in there and try to get that shrapnel out, but they found that there was a higher rate of creating infection and or death by trying to get it out
Yeah.
than just leaving it in.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you'll see a lot more Vietnam vets will have metal in them than you will Korean War or World War II or what have you. It
Right.
is interesting that they made that decision. So you have an entire generation of men that have walking around with metal in them, right?
Yep. It's
It
crazy, isn't it? When you think about it,
is.
how resilient the body is.
Yeah.
It's better to leave the wounds alone and to just let it heal around it than it is to dig it out in most cases. That's in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Like if you get stabbed deep enough, they tell you don't pull it out. For God's sake, don't pull it out
Yeah.
because your body will clot around it until they can do it properly. So they can get it out the right way. But
That's
yeah,
true.
it's crazy to me. Like I know even me, it's not shrapnel, it's bone. But in my mouth, they couldn't get a piece of one of my wisdom teeth out. So like, you know what? We're just gonna leave it in there. You'll be fine. All right, and I'm fine. I don't even know it's there.
Yeah.
Uh, it's amazing what your body can adapt to, even things that it probably shouldn't be able to, but for some reason it just does. Just does it.
Yeah, no, we're very adaptive. The problem is we're very quick to adapt. We're not good at backtracking it though, right?
Yes.
Because once the body makes those adjustments, it's like a one-way street, right? So it's
Yeah.
very odd in that way. Like with talk about the shrapnel and stuff. Several times, my mother, because the shrapnel inside the deep stuff will never come out, but the stuff that's
Mhm.
subcutaneous or a little bit deeper will eventually, over years or decades, it will push itself out. It'll work itself out the body, right?
Right.
And so my mother has actually pulled metal out of him. Instead of
Oof.
just going to the doctor and get it done, you just pull it out, right? And I get that. I'm very similar with dealing with certain things like that. It freaks my wife out. But it is interesting. But then on the other side of adapting, and one of the reasons why we always try to keep our girls somewhat pure in their virginity is
Mhm.
because even though we have the science behind us now, the old people knew it. that young women, if they become very used to sleeping around, well, they've adapted to it, and there's nothing to help backtrack it. It
Right.
becomes
Undo
locked
it.
in. But men have a chemical aspect in our brain that allows us to backtrack. We have a system inside of us to backtrack away from polygamy into monogamy. Isn't that interesting? That men have that, but women don't.
It's very, very interesting. Very odd, in fact.
It is, but
Makes sense, though.
it
Makes
tells you,
sense.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
some manner of overall genetic adaptation, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a difference between racial or species based adaptation and personal adaptation, right?
Hmm.
Well, anyway, let's get into it because we're just talking about dads and things that we did on Father's Day, but I had a pleasant surprise, guys. Everybody has their favorite anime, right? I'm sure. And a lot of them tend to be kind of classic stuff like Ninja Scroll or Ghost in the Shell or Yamato or Star Blazers or whatever. But Grimlock, what's your favorite anime? What's the number one for you?
Movie or series?
Either.
Hmm. I guess I'm gonna go. Damn, that's kind of hard now that I'm thinking about it. I'm gonna go with a gun. I'll go with Gundam because I think I've watched more Gundam than anything.
Sure. No, Gundam's
Time.
long lasting, good series. Really good story, actually. Good
Good
writing.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Thundero?
Well, my second is Cowboy Bebop, but my
That is a good one.
first love was Trigun. I love
Oh,
Trigun.
That's a good one
I
Yeah.
too.
saw Trigun
Yeah.
News today and I didn't bring it up. Mm.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
done,
really?
yeah, they
Oh,
done.
see, look at this guy just teasing me now.
I'll go find it when we get into it and bring it up, check it out because I did see Trigun. It was cool. I didn't mind
Yep.
Trigun. There's a bunch of really fun stuff. Devil May Cry, Gungrave. They're in the same vein as that. But
Yep.
of course, I've enjoyed those. Of course, Cowboy Bebop's amazing. Record of the Lotus War, which is probably one for only the old dudes. But that
Lupin
was
the Third.
Lupin. I've never been a big fan of it. My family loves it.
Oh,
Uh,
oh.
but my favorite is an obscure one that most people probably don't know much about. Inuyasha Yasha Days.
Inuyasha.
That's the devil dog.
Yes.
Okay,
That's Inuyasha. Yeah, that is exactly what he is too. He is a demon dog, a dog demon.
well, that's what it says. It says devil
Yep.
dog. It says dog devil, a dog demon.
Yep.
But anyway, my favorite is an odd one called Spriggan. And I really enjoyed this movie. It is my favorite anime movie, right? And
Yep.
I really enjoyed it. I don't know what it was. It just kind of it was a good, nice enough balance of Western philosophy and historical mythologies put into Japanese science. The only negative thing I have with it was kind of the same with all Japanese anime, high school kids. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Just make him a young adult.
Yeah.
That's the only dumb thing. But the good thing is he hardly interacts with it at all. Hardly. It's just touched there to remind you. But anyway, it was a good movie, and the animation was excellent. It was really way back when you actually got animation, real, actual hand-drawn animation. And it's back in '96, I think. It's very similar time to Ghost in the Shell, actually. But this is my favorite anime movie right here. It's Spriggan. But the thing is, I saw something yesterday that gave me a very nice Father's Day, even though I forgot it was Father's Day, because Netflix, they said a Netflix anime series, but Japanese made it and they just bought it, right? Uh, Dude, Spriggan TV show.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh. But
and I
well,
watched it.
I guess like you said, it's been bought by Netflix more than anything.
Yeah, no, they've clearly had nothing to do with the making of it. And it
Yeah.
was only 6 episodes, but clearly this is mid-season. We're going to get another six sometimes later. Clearly, yeah, just from watching it. But the first 2 episodes basically retold the movie, and then the other
Hmm.
4 were more content. Now, I have to say, there is no wokeness in this whatsoever. It's just straight up Spriggan. Unfortunately, the art with this modern CG art and stuff that they use, nowhere near as good as the original. Nowhere near. But then again, I haven't seen really good animation in quite a long time, right? We don't get great hand drawn animation anymore. And I get it, it's expensive. And the things that get it are more kind of girl based things, you know.
Kind
Uh,
of utterly amazing to me how animation across the world has noticeably gotten worse.
yeah,
When you would have thought that it would have gotten better, especially with new techniques and new technology, you would have thought that it would be better, and it's so much worse.
it is. And it's just the
I'm kind of
cost.
kind of dumbfounded by
It
it.
is, yeah, it's the cost. Because the only way to really afford it is to have a place where it has very low salaries for people like India or China or Indonesia or something like that. And a lot of the hand drawn stuff you see today is coming out of those places. There's still a market here in Japan for sure, for hand drawn, but like I said, it's mainly goes toward the girls stuff. Because here in Japan, majority of manga and anime, manga buyers and anime viewers are girls. So they get the
Yep.
lion's share of that. So the animation's nowhere near as good. Fair enough, but it's not bad either, per se. But I was very happy because I got four new stories from Spriggan that I watched this weekend, and I was like, "Cool, man! That's a blast from the past." And as I haven't heard a single peep out of it, and like I said, it's my favorite movie. I love Spriggan, dude. And it's just this neat thing because the Japanese love to take Western ideas and make stories out of them. They really do.
Hmm.
But this is based. Spriggan is based upon the idea of there are many high-end
Spriggan sounds like a dwarf warrior.
well, because it's a gnome, a murderous gnome is what a Spriggan is.
Hmm.
A red cap that has the ability to grow large and powerful, and destroy and murder things is what a Spriggan is. Technically, if you look at the word, it is a spirit guardian. Is really what it is. The guardian of the Fae is what a Spriggan is. But but anyway, the idea behind it is that there are various high-end organizations around the world, whether it be governmental or private, that are in this desperate hunt for ancient technologies because they came to an understanding, or ancient artifacts, historical artifacts, because they came to an understanding is that they kind of keep secret from the public, that there was an ancient society on the planet that was so technologically advanced to be considered gods,
Hmm.
and their technology, they either we don't know the end of the story yet, but they either shut it down intentionally or they destroyed themselves or what have you. But they use ancient Hebrew as the language that that is all written, and you see it written right here on the screen. And there's basically a warning from the past that this technology is dangerous, and we had the technology to build it, but we didn't have enough to shut it down. You really shouldn't use it. So Spriggan here are the elite soldiers who are technologically enhanced, that work for Arkham, and they're just trying to. Well, I'm sure there's more intrigue behind the scenes, but the general concept is they're trying to follow that and keep these technologies buried and under control and not out. But the interesting thing is the American government is the enemy, the Russian government is an enemy, many big corporations are the enemy to this particular group. And that's the whole concept. So they kind of go and looking after like the Noah's Ark and the Crystal Skull, all these kind of ancient artifacts that are really well known. Well, they turn it on its head, and it's all alien technology. So it's a pretty cool concept. It's up my alley with mythology and history stuff. And yeah, I was pretty happy with it. Storytelling was pretty solid. The art was okay. So Spriggan. So I had a good
Pretty cool.
Father's Day.
Cool.
I bet. Sounds
Yeah.
like it.
Excuse me. Because I didn't
I'll
know
check
anything.
it out.
Yeah, no, I didn't know anything about it. I was really surprised. I mean, like I said, this new TV series coming for Netflix, the first two episodes are just retelling the movie. However, I would strongly suggest to go watch the movie. in that regard because the animation is way better, dude. Way better.
Hmm.
So for the first 2 episodes. After that, it's all new content. So you know, check it out. Like I said, this is my favorite, personally. Anyway, let's move on. Spriggan. This is and you can even see it in the art, right? Here's the original, and here's the new. It's not as good. You can see it.
Yeah.
Look at the face and stuff. It's much better art here.
Yeah.
It's got this kind of standard Hunter x Hunter type of art, really, with the CG stuff on top of it. Some of the stuff is fine. The fight scenes are fantastic. But anyway, I'm gonna move on. That was my Father's Day. Here we go.
James Patterson apologizes for claiming older white males can't get writing jobs due to racism. Well, James Schnookums, you are only making that problem worse by apologizing.
Yeah, I don't know why he apologized. The dude's like almost 80 or something like that. What do you? He's 75 or something like that. Why do you care? And it's interesting to see John writing for Bounding the Comics. By the way, John De La Rose, which is a good idea. John's a good writer. Uh,
Yeah.
so interesting that they brought him on as because we've seen him a few times now. So he must be I don't know if he's a staff writer or it's volunteer. I don't know how they work it over here, but John is a good writer though. But in this
He is.
article, he is this guy had basically made a very standard comment that we all know is true. That being a white male, and especially an older male in these days, there is extreme racism toward you from getting any kind of opportunity whatsoever, let alone writing. And of course, this pissed off the left. And how dare you, white man? You have everything, which is ridiculous. And he apologized, which he should not have done. And
No,
began.
if I never understood the idea of apologizing for an opinion because for one there's no right and wrong in it, and let's just say even if Patterson was wrong in his opinion, what the fuck does it matter? Why I don't understand, especially why so many of these guys will say things only to turn around and apologize for something like less than 24 hours later. Either you didn't mean what you said or you're a coward. Which
Yep,
one is it?
I agree. And this 75-year-old dude, why do you care, dude? Why would you even back it up? Who gives a shit? And this one's getting a little bit about, how dare he create a white character, a black character type of thing as well. And the thing with it is, you do realize that in America, particularly, I can't speak for other countries, but in America, particularly, some of the greatest black TV you've ever seen in your life was created by white men, Jews.
Yeah.
Norman Lear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I mean, so what? First of all, what are you talking about, right?
Well, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? The narcissism, this idea that no one else could ever possibly have any conceptualization of what it's like to be you.
Yeah, it's
That's
weird.
so utterly narcissistic. It belabors even being talked against.
Yeah, we're all
Belabors my intellect to be able to try and deflate that because it's just so ridiculous. Obviously, if you live within a relatively similar situation to each other, meaning a country or a city or whatever, you could probably at least have some idea of what it's like to be that person enough to write a competent character if you're a competent writer. But
Sure.
this idea that no one of other races or ethnicities or genders or sexualities or whatever fucking nonsense identity you want to have can't write about your group because I just can't possibly understand is so narcissistic and entitled, it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
No, it is.
Yeah, I
We're
hate
human,
I
right?
Yeah.
well that and there's just so much overlap we as humans like
Yeah.
it should be understood like there's no difference between a person having to go to their having to get up and go pay your bills. Paying my bills being black or mixed or Asian or whatever is no different from a white guy going to pay your bills. You either go pay your bills or you get your shit shut off. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really more cultural than it is racial anyway. Like for instance, if we want to keep it to this particular point of the people of of African descent or Black African descent, um, I can assure you that a black man in America has no clue of the cultural stresses and cultural, interactions a black man in Nigeria has.
Of course not.
I guarantee it. And that's
Yeah.
black to black. And of course, you could say the same thing with a white American and a Polish person. We don't know because the culture is different, and that's really what it all comes down to is culture. In America, you have various different cultures. We have the
Mhm.
American culture, and then we have subcultures. Some of those subcultures are really bad. For
Yeah.
instance, progressive politics
Yeah.
or the ghetto hood rat,
The ghetto and
whatever color
the
he may be.
actual hillbilly shit where they're banging each other, shit like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
that's all bad stuff. And the weird thing is it's very incestuous, not in the literal sense, but in the cultural sense,
Oh yeah.
because they all seem to come from the same vein of people. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. People who don't put their shopping cart back. That's all the same. It's all. It might be a little bit. Theirs is more extreme, but it's the same thing.
It's culture.
They're parasites. It's
Well,
parasitism.
Well, when we're talking about the black culture, and it has different facets, and there are subcultures within it, of course, and of course you
Mhm.
also have the American culture on top of that. But one of the interesting thing that they've done to themselves, there's a lot actually. That's a long conversation. But anyway, let me just take one sliver out. If you are living in the inner city, in the ghetto, in that particular black community, black culture, not just the normal American one, but if you're a black person stuck in that,
Mhm.
here's a big problem they did. If you're a black boy who's going to school and you're smart and you study well and you do good in school, they beat you and call you an Uncle Tom because you're trying to be smart like the white man. Now, I don't understand the reverse, the racism is going on here, but that's what they do. And what has that
Good
resulted in?
thing.
Well, most of the black people who go on to college and therefore graduate are black women.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Grimlock, you wanted
it's
to
a big
say
part.
something.
Oh no, that's still a thing, unfortunately.
I know, I'm sure it is. I know it is. I saw it growing up, and I've seen it since. It doesn't make any sense. Why are you being racist to yourselves by saying only white people can be smart? I know Joe Biden said it, but you don't have to agree with him.
He literally did say that.
Amongst many things, he
Oh,
got away with saying.
Yeah.
it's all right, Chester. He was 100% legitimately elected president. It's fine.
Uh-huh. No, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so there are problems going on. But this whole idea about creativity, it's certainly not limited. I mean, I and all of us here have enjoyed stories that are about men at war or men doing this or that written by women, and they were done well.
Yep.
Uh, there are stories about Asians and Africans and Indians and a lot of
One of
Russian
the
ones from people who are not from those cultures.
one of the best Star Trek writers was a woman.
Oh, sure.
I can't remember. I can't Sherry, that ridiculously long last name. Yeah, she's. I think she works on the Orville now.
Yeah.
But she was one of the best writers for Star Trek, and she wrote. I mean, the whole episodes. So she wrote every character. Um, it's nonsensical. It comes from one of two places by my estimation: narcissism or insecurity, or both, which is a dangerous combination. You're not only a narcissist, but you're also insecure. That's not good. And then you get in these situations where they start telling people they're not allowed to do X, Y, and Z because of their immutable traits. It's just not healthy, man. It's not healthy for society to think that rigidly about these things.
No.
It always leads to a dark place historically.
Sure.
It's never not led to a dark
Yeah.
place.
Well, I mean, inside one of my favorite hobbies since I was a kid with Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop role playing. One of the most prolific and greatest creators in the history of that is Margaret Weiss, the queen of it, right? And she's really, really good. Of course, now she's not the right type of woman, though. Yeah. But Thundero, you're going to have to deal with Dave. He's triggering me.
What has Dave done? What has good old Dave done? I'm not looking at my
Read
computer
it.
screen at the moment.
Read it.
Thank God. Oh, Dave, what have you done? Chester, did you know American Southern culture came from England? Thomas Sowell wrote about it. Uh-oh. Go on, sir.
All of American culture came from England. You're hurting me, Dave. And most of the Southern culture is actually French.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You cut out big time. All I heard was Southern culture is actually French. And
No, well,
you're
I'm
correct.
sorry. I was whispering like Biden. I apologize. But no, all American culture is English. Yeah, coincidental there. But
Yeah,
the Southern culture has a huge dose of French in it as well. But of course, Mr.
correct.
Sowell is correct, and I think he was mentioning that thing as a black man talking about white man histories. But the thing is with Mr. Sowell, he's smart,
No,
excessively
he's not
smart.
allowed to be.
Yeah,
You're not allowed to be
he's
smart in America.
he's
That's
a
against
he's
the
a
rules.
researcher who does his
Oh,
work.
yeah.
And yeah, see, because it doesn't matter what color he is. But then again, amongst the black community, you'll have he's accepted and embraced on this day, but the next day he's an Uncle Tom. You see, it just
Obviously.
depends on the day when it comes to Mr. Soul.
Well,
But
there is a slow turn in that. I don't know if you've noticed, Chester, but I know a lot of people lament the the reaction channels on YouTube,
sure,
but I'm seeing a lot more people, especially a lot more people of color, reacting to Thomas Sowell for the first time and going, I agree with that. He's like, I was mad at him at first, but I'm not, listening to the whole thing, I understand him,
right.
and I
Well,
agree.
he's just giving you information and being honest, and he does it in a very intellectual, intelligent way. Um, he's not a ghetto boy. And why should he have to be? Is that
He's not good.
required? If you're black, you have to be also ghetto. Is that real? There's a lot of
No,
black people around the world who don't come from the ghettos of Philadelphia.
oh no,
you
there's
know,
plenty of them.
yeah, there's plenty, and they come from all kind of different cultures. But the Italians in Philly would have issues with that. Dave says, well, America has layered all kinds of cool, interesting stuff on top of us, which is what makes America interesting. But the structure, the foundation, the actual, you know, building blocks of America is English Protestants. That is what we are. We're an English Protestant culture.
There we go.
Yeah.
The word you're looking for, Chester, is the law. The law of which we base our society off of is British, by and large. And that's one of the reasons why it's been successful, because aside from the Romans, I'd say the Brits are the best at writing law. They may not be the best at applying it,
Well,
but
no,
when it comes to
they're good at that.
legal philosophy, they're fantastic.
They are. But it's like you can see it in our food. You can see it in the type of sports we lean into. But then again, all modern sports were created by the British anyway. The Irish, fair enough. The Irish started off pretty rough. They were lower than dogs, and black people
Yep.
were above dogs. So the Irish were at the bottom of that barrel, but they did pull themselves up. The Germans are, well, most of the big things we have in America were built by Germans. Let's be fair. We don't talk
Yep.
about the Polish, Dave. Yep.
Yep.
No, we don't need.
It's weird because the Polish in Poland, awesome. The Polish here, God, tell you.
Yeah.
I tell you.
Of course, America is the melting pot, but our whole structure is built upon the English Protestant, right? And I know a lot of you, if you studied the Mayflower, you know that they launched out of the Netherlands, and there was a lot of funding coming, and a big chunk of them coming out of the Netherlands. But the other chunk of them came in their stop in Britain, and then they stopped in Ireland before heading out. But then again, a lot of ships that were heading across the Atlantic at that time would come out of would start their ocean journey out of Ireland. And these days, if you're a sailor, you understand exactly why you do that. But I won't put that in your face. Oh, fuck off, you jerk offs. Oh, okay, Dave. Okay. Sorry, Dave. I apologize.
Dave, I live with a lot of a lot of Polish Americans, and it's a love-hate relationship. They're awesome people, genuinely, when you talk to them. But I tell you, some of these people, man, the decision-making skills, whew, they're not the best. They're not the best.
And you seem to hear that a lot. I don't really. I'm just taking the normal American culture concept. I don't know if I've ever met Polish people.
Oh, I bet you have.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I
that
bet.
were culturally Polish.
Oh, from Poland. I
yeah,
see
yeah,
what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've met Russians, I've met Ukrainians and Scandinavians and a lot of Australians, unfortunately, because fuck that country. I've met way too many damn a lot of Italians, but you can't breathe the Italian out of an Italian. You can't do it, and it
No.
sticks to them like freaking glue. And
What
that,
are you
and
trying
if
to say, man?
and that and if you were insulted by that, good.
No, I'm just gonna sit here and have another bite of my pizza and go fuck you.
That's exactly what an Italian would do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But back here to this gentleman, and he's like, "Can you get a job? Yes, it's harder. Yes, it's even harder for older writers. You don't meet many 52-year-old white male writers, and this is becoming more and more true." And this article just goes into the various backlashes and other people mocking him, and but this is really where the article got interesting to me, because I already knew about the statement from this gentleman, and of course it's 100% true. I mean, it just is in this world today. It doesn't matter if you're even old, just white in general is a negative in America, which is odd, seeing as most Americans are white. But I thought this was pretty interesting. Look at the demographic breakdown, the gender breakdown of this. Now, I'm not sure why we need all of this particular information, but let's take a look at it here. Racial and ethnicity. So, white people, 75% of all writers in America. Not shocking. Not shocking, right? And we come over here to gender identity, or just, men and women. Fuck the other stuff, man. Go to hell. 61%, and honestly, we suck all that other stuff in there. It's actually around that same 75% number, right? Or near it, near 70%, like 64%, 66%, something like that. Women, the not gay, 79%. That's actually low. Disabilities, not disabled, because ableism is a thing. 88%. So what are we looking at here? The vast majority of people who are published by writers, the vast majority, over 70%, are women, right? And white women in particular. So I do believe that Sir here has a point.
Yeah. He's on to something.
He's on to something, because it didn't used to be like that. Matter of fact,
No.
in the 20th century, I would imagine it was probably majority male, but not overwhelmingly so. Women have been getting involved in writing for quite a while,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
quite a
some of
while.
them have been spectacular
Yeah, famous even.
authors.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I wonder if you could find, it's probably out there, if you could find data from like 20 years ago what the breakdown
Or
was.
80 years ago. I'm sure you could.
Yeah.
I just didn't bother. I just took that because that caught my eye, and I was, that's interesting.
Well, the reason I asked that is because 20 years ago, you had obviously Harry Potter run its course, 2025, whatever it was. And obviously it's written by a woman, the most successful writer of all time. And I wonder if that had anything to do with it, because I know a lot after that there was a big push. It seemed from outside in these publishing companies to find the next J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, sure.
And they were pumping out all kinds of stuff and propping up stuff that probably wouldn't have sold otherwise, or at least not as well.
Yeah, but she came out of that, and when her gender had nothing to do with it. She's just
correct.
A really good
I don't even think a lot of people knew she was a woman, because there's nothing identifying the J.K. Like, I'm sure a lot of the readers didn't know that when they picked up a Harry Potter at first. So I don't know. I'm not saying that's why she was famous at all. She's a fantastic world builder, if anything.
Yeah.
And I think because of her, part of the reason. is why it's a lot more females now. Also, you have to factor in romance novels,
Yeah.
which are just massive.
Well, that's
It
what I
might
mean.
be the biggest category. It's
You know,
huge.
I don't know that in the past 200 years, men have so overwhelmingly outweighed women in the field. I really
Mhm.
don't think so. I don't have the data. I'm just going from my general knowledge of writers and stuff. And romance novels, of course, are mainly written by women. But
Yeah.
Danielle Steele is very successful, for instance.
Oh yeah.
Grimlock, could you do me a favor and read this whimpering apology, please?
I gotta just read the beta shit. Let me grab a Kleenex so I can get the proper feel for this.
Okay.
I apologize for saying white male writers have trouble finding work as a form of racism. I absolutely do not believe that racism is practiced against white writers. Please know that I strongly support a diversity of voices being heard in literature, Hollywood, everywhere.
Now,
Please give me work.
how many guns were put to his head? Because it feels like something was written under just duress.
Pretty sure a rainbow-colored dildo attached to a 2x4 was put in his head
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
because it is that month.
It'd be
Because-
inclusive.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, Mr. Patterson. You should not have apologized because you didn't say anything wrong. You didn't even say what you apologized for. What did he say?
Correct.
He said that, yeah, you can get a job as a white person, but it's certainly a white man, but it's certainly difficult, especially if you're old. That's all. That's what he
Well,
said, and it's
well,
right. He's
that's-
right. We just showed you the data. He's 100% right, but he's apologizing for something else, which he didn't say.
Mhm. It seems like he's apologizing for what other people perceived him to have
sure.
said,
Finding work
Which
as a
is-
former, yeah.
which is ridiculous. You should never apologize because somebody misinterpreted your words.
True.
Whether they did it intentionally or not, you don't apologize for that. You clarify, but you don't apologize for that under any circumstances. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous standard to live to.
Well, from my understanding, not wanting to hire older people has been a thing for as long as I've been alive.
Yeah.
So that part of it, even if people don't want to believe it, there is a lot of truth in that. I mean, we understand that, but to this idea that somebody has to apologize for having an opinion that upsets you is, to me, is just ridiculous. You don't agree with him, all right? Make your fucking argument. You be like, okay, I disagree with you based on blah blah blah, whatever blah 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 turns out to be. Why is that? Like, why is it that you can just sit there and tell somebody your feelings about an opinion is more important than somebody's opinion?
Yeah, no,
Other
it
than-
is ridiculous. Yeah.
Other than that, social media has allowed these narcissistic twats to be able to do that.
Well, luckily for James Patterson, at least unless he's been really, really, really shitty with his money, he should be fine. And he's an older man.
Yeah.
It's weird to me though. There is this in a lot of these people, especially of his age group, I should say. There's a lot of very quick to apologize
Well,
about certain things specifically. This
come
is
from-
one of them.
they come from a generation that wants to be copacetic.
Hmm.
It's just it is what it is, and back in those days, an apology was accepted, but it isn't
Yes.
anymore.
No.
And of course, the reality is, when we come to these things, me personally, meritocracy is the only thing that matters. I could give a shit what you look like. All that matters is, are you good at it? And that's that. And I know we'll get the simpering folks who will come in and say, yeah, but it's unbalanced. Well, fucking do better then.
They don't like that. They don't like hearing that.
Well, that's the reality.
Well,
That'd
the
be
idea,
better.
the idea of balance for them is everybody gets a chance. No, not everybody deserves a chance.
No, they don't.
I hate to tell you that. There's a reason things break down the way they do. Look, right now, if somebody got a call, you're doing a contest, and you're looking for a cover artist, and it's me on one side and Jim Lee on the other side. Should I
Yeah.
be getting a shot at that?
No,
No.
no. You can go right to
No.
hell, Grimlock. And if Dave wants to know,
But I would disagree with that. I'm not even anywhere. I'm not even anywhere in his
not the same
stratosphere.
league. Yeah, I know, and
Yeah,
that's fair enough. And that's an Asian American. And
that's right.
Dave wants to know what's about the boobs. Well, go to a strip club, Dave. What's wrong with you?
Well,
Or
boobs
just
are the
walk
perfect
outside
example
these days, I guess.
of why these equity, whatever they want to call it, these sorts of ideas, these sorts of beliefs don't work. Because listen, I love me some boobies, but some boobies shouldn't be loved because
No,
they're a train wreck,
that is true.
and that's terrible for those ladies. I feel bad for them, but I'm okay.
I don't keep
You know
them
what I'm
orangutan titties on your shirt, please.
Well,
Please.
yeah, no, I agree, dude. Because I've seen a lot of scantily clad ladies
Yep.
on various, street questioning and stuff I've watched on the YouTube. And these girls, you really got nothing to be showing. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a heavy guy, but I'm certainly not in the shape I was when I was young. I'm not going to run around with a midriff cut out. Well, I would never do that, but you know what I mean. I'm not going to. I'm not going to do that because I'm not as toned as I used to be.
You're not gonna let
Yeah.
the women see the flabdomen?
Well, I got it on
Flip.
the bottom part. The bottom part is softer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, it kind of debunks a lot of those arguments, in my opinion. It's just we're not even equal in our boobies. Women, there's women out there who, God bless them, are walking around with a train wreck on their chest. Just it's not pretty. It's not something we should even really mock. It ain't their fault, most likely.
yeah.
So, but
Maybe.
that totally proves, or I should say, reinforces the idea that when you focus on this kind of stuff, right? Like you could even kind of say James is doing it to some degree. When you focus on this kind, but he's a response. When you focus on this kind of stuff, you're trying to force a pair of maybe not the best titties to be equivalent and loved as much as the pair of spectacular titties,
I'm told.
and it's just not going to happen.
No,
It's
and
not gonna
I'm
happen.
told that if I don't want to have sex with a transgender, I am transphobic. I have been told
Yeah.
Well, I'd be
this.
transphobic.
Yes, no, I
Yeah,
think we're in the same boat there.
if
And then
that's
the
the metric,
question,
then I guess so.
well, the
I guess
question
so.
is, well, yeah, but you have a dick.
Yeah.
But I'm still a woman. Well, no, well, yeah, it's the dick though.
In your
It's the
mind,
dick though.
But the penis.
Yeah,
The problem is the penis.
yeah,
There,
yeah,
schnookums.
yeah. And the thing is, I've never really understood the sodomy. I know that goes both ways. It's not necessarily just gays. I know that
Yeah.
these days it seems like a lot of girls do it. It's some weird way to avert the loss of virginity. Okay, you'll have to explain that to me. But me personally, I've never really been into it because, ew, why?
Ew.
Well, I mean, ew, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, why would I? Why? And then, of course, we know that the reason why there's so much disease comes out of sodomy is because it creates tears and such. Because I hate to tell you this, but it's not the rectum and the rectal shaft are not really created for quick back and forth motions. It's not as strong as the female vagina, which is a extremely robust bit of flesh there. Yeah, no.
The vagina.
Well, it is though. It's built for that. The other is not, and therefore
That's
you're
true.
asking for disease because it is a rather unsanitary area. Whereas the vagina, shocking, it has a built-in sanitation system.
Yeah.
It's weird that.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a shame. Well, it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because damn it. Damn it. Sometimes you're feeling some kind of way and it's just Just not this week. Not
No,
this week,
no,
Bucko.
no, not this
Not
week.
this week,
No,
Bucko.
no, thank you. But I'm just saying, there are issues that come with it, right? And this seems to be being ignored as well. We just had a monkeypox come out of a gay. Grimlock, could you explain to me exactly why they're dressing up like animals, particularly horses? What is that?
You don't.
They're fucking weirdos.
Okay, and of course it did. Of course it did. Because one thing we've learned about the homosexuals is they are overly sexed, radically so. And they've decided that this needs to be given to our children in the form of drag queens and
Mm.
cash being put into the panty line waistlines of drag queens. It's enough to drive one to crime. But anyway, sir, uh, you know, I'm sorry they bullied you, dude, but you shouldn't. You're too old. You're too old to back
You're,
down. You should have told them
James,
to fuck
you're
off, sir.
you're too good to be that weak. Stop it, James.
Yeah.
Stop it,
Well, anyway,
Mr. Patterson.
let's move on from it. But it's just bullying an old dude. Yes, but that's okay though, because he's white. He deserves bullying for some crime of his ancient ancestry. So fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay.
Oh boy. Veteran DC Comics writer Grant Morrison, there's one, says Ezra Miller, there's two, different now compared to when they worked together on The Flash, recalls actor, quote, cut off contact from pretty much everyone for a while, end quote. No. He's always been this.
Yeah.
Always.
I'm sure.
That's it.
And we've heard now that it's okay to say boo a little bit about him. Everybody's saying he's always been troublesome from day one,
Yep.
right?
Oh, now y'all fucking want to say it.
Yeah, well, Grant's saying the opposite. He's saying he was a nice dude when I knew him. Maybe he was, Grant. Maybe you were the right kind of sexy for him.
Yeah, exactly. This is Grant Morrison we're talking about. He's not a bastion of virtue himself.
No, but he's also a very handsome man. Let's be fair.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Very handsome. Even though he's older, he's one of he got that Sean Connery going on. So okay, so he's not making excuses for Ezra. He's just saying that something has changed. Okay, fair enough, Mr. Morrison. Although we know that's not really true. But the saga continues.
The Flash and Fantastic Beasts star Ezra Miller deletes Instagram after appearing to taunt authorities, quote, you can't touch me, I am in another universe, end quote. Oh, you've been in another universe for a while, goat fucker. You have been, that's true.
Well, because the Ezra Miller thing is straight on bizarre. He's literally on the run from the police, literally, not figuratively, literally. And good, because it sounds like he's an actual groomer, which, to be fair, was a bit of a surprise to me. I thought he was just this really mentally broken gay dude, right? But no, he's much deeper and darker than that, dude. He likes the little girls who make a decision with his help to become men. You see, because these girls we're talking about, even though they're 12, 13, little girls, all of them, both of them, and I'm sure more will come up, are girls who are saying that they are non-binary and they dress like boys, right? So it's interesting. His fetish is very specific. I guess he likes the look of boys, but it's disgusting. But the vajayjays, where is that? And you're right. I just explained that, Ezra. But maybe some adult vajayjays, please. But no. Yeah, this guy's an absolute, actual monster, Grimlock. A real one, not just a dumbass freak.
Yeah.
Huh.
I almost don't know what to say about this space cadet now because there's been so much said about him.
Fair.
And it just gets worse. It seems like every time you turn around, there's like more shit. It's like more. It's like
It is. Well,
it,
the
it,
first one was dealing with a young girl who's now 18, however, and he's been messing with her for years. But that one, she is, it's like Polanski's little 13-year-old endeavor he had. She's like, I don't blame him. Okay, and that girl's doing the same. But the second one is she's still young, and the family is not pleased. And I saw an article because this just came out of nowhere, it seemed, but it didn't. It actually had been kind of suppressed by the local press and the police of the area. It's not a new accusation. Interesting, huh?
Mm. It is interesting, and it's disgusting at the same
It
time.
is. Well, it's like those damn cops over in Britain that knew that thousands of girls were being groomed by fucking Pakistanis, and they didn't say anything because they worry about being racist. Excuse me? Excuse me.
Yeah, yeah.
Your job is to protect the public, and you allowed young white girls, thousands of them, to be groomed by fucking bastard ass Pakis. Yeah, and I said
Yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah, bite me. Because here's the problem, and let's elaborate on that a little bit, shall we? If we want to get into the absolute decrepitude of this conversation, these idiot girls going on and doing safe prostitution on OnlyFans. If they're pretty enough, they'll get a little DM from somewhere in the Middle East, and they will pay ridiculous amounts of money. These rich Saudis and Kuwaitis and the UAEs and all those kind of rich dudes over there in the Middle East, and they'll bring those girls over for fun times, right? But here's the thing with the fun times that those girls are doing, really, really bizarre shit. I mean, and literally shit being involved quite often, literally. Well, no, but why are they doing that? Because it's completely deviant and disgusting what they're doing. And if they were just having sex with a pretty Western girl, oh, fine. That's not what they're doing, though. It is really depraved. And why is that? Well, it's the same problem with the Pakistanis in Britain and anywhere else you find Muslims, because fear is what keeps most humans from breaking the law. That's just what it is. It's
yeah.
fear. It's not conscientiousness. It's none of that nonsense. I know it sounds good, but the reality is fear of getting caught. That's really what keeps humans in line. But see,
Hmm.
Islam has a huge problem inside their books, you see, whether it be the Hadith or the Quran itself. They are allowed to do whatever they want to a non Muslim because they're not
Correct.
considered human. And that's why they're
Correct.
doing it. It's more of a way to insult the Western whore, right? And these OnlyFans girls are allowing themselves to do that, and we've had suicides inside of it, or some even maybe not suicides,
Hmm.
coming out of that type of situation, and it brings us back to this just depraved, disgusting activities that are trying to be normalized by these people. And and this is a major problem with Islam because it not only does it bring violence because they're told to cut your head from your shoulder. It's literally in the book, guys. If you haven't read it, I suggest you go read the Quran. The Hadith is a little bit more of a deeper slog, but go read it. It's an angry book, dude. It's an angry book. Whereas you compare that to the other big or the number one religion in the world today, some form of Christianity, what does that teach? God judges, turn the other cheek,
Mm.
be good to your neighbor, charity. It's radically different. It's radically different, right? The Bible itself, the New Testament in particular, does not teach you to bring harm to others. It actually teaches you quite the opposite. That is God's job. Violence is God's job, right? So when you compare the
Mm.
two, they're not equal. Islam has a huge, huge problem. And this degradation of those who are not Muslim and you're allowed to do whatever you want to them takes away the fear. Now, most Muslims would never do such horrid things because they're just people, but it allows it to. And that's why 27% of all Muslims on earth agree and support terrorism. Did
Yep.
you hear that number I just gave you?
Oh, I know.
27%.
Uh, even and if anybody in America who thinks it's not here, you're out of your damn mind.
Of course it is.
When I was younger, the church I grew up in with my parents, they brought in the son of the founder of the local mosque. There's a big ass mosque here right off I-75. Huge. Can't miss it. Giants, got the spires and everything. The guy who founded that was an extremist. Full on jihadi radical.
Of course it was.
His
Muslim
son
Brotherhood, probably.
was not. Yeah, his son was not. So his son converted to Christianity and ran, basically. When we brought him in to speak to the church, we had to do so without announcing it because they were afraid someone was going to show up and try to kill him. He was afraid of that.
Yeah.
So he came in and he told us that this group here that runs this mosque is militant, very militant,
Yeah.
and try not to cross them because they're violent. Now, we came to find out that he was correct. A whole bunch of them got arrested right after, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years after 9/11. They got busted up. And a new imam runs it now, or whatever they're called.
Imam.
And, yeah, but I don't think he completely disavowed because they don't do that. They don't do that to other Muslims. He just basically quieted everything way down.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they still are that way, but I have no reason to believe they're not.
No, of course not.
And that was in the Midwest, in Ohio. There was this radicalized, violent extremist group of Muslims.
Right. No, of course they are. They're all over. They're everywhere in the world. Anytime you get to an 8 or 9% of your population being Muslim, you have terror coming your way. You have more and more violence until either they're dead or you're dead. Right. And the only example we really have in more modern, it's not even modern, we're going back to, Charlemagne times, but, well, after Charlemagne, of actually them being pushed out is Spain. And that was centuries ago, dude.
Reconquista.
Yeah. But one of the other problems you have is the thin level of the fear of God when it comes to certain things. So much so that because there's fear of God of a Muslim man forcing himself sexually upon a Muslim woman. And they're very fearful of this. And Muslim women are actually very safe inside their culture. They're very safe. But see, the men, more so in certain cultures, like, say, Pakistan, than other Muslim groups, like, say, Indonesia. How do you solve that? Where's the man expected to have his sex? He can't be having random sex with the Muslim girls, and he doesn't have the money a sheik does to bring in some OnlyFans girls so he can literally shit on her and have a laugh. Well, what do? Well, you have sex with the little boys because the Bible, their book, doesn't say anything against that. That's okay. And you think I might be joking? I'm not. It's rampant. It's rampant, particularly in places like Afghanistan, Oman, Pakistan, the Muslims of India. It's rampant. It's quite normal for a young Muslim boy to be expected to sexually favor an older man. This is normal. Right? And think about how many American soldiers were arrested and actually punished for blowing the head off of some asshole he walked into a room and saw him raping a little boy. I would give them a medal personally. But that happened, right? That happened. Now, if you go to Indonesia, who are Muslims as well, you see very little of that. So it's not a universal thing. But if you get into some of these cultures, not all cultures are created equal, everybody. They're not. Shithole cultures do exist.
Literal ones where they literally do weird things with shit.
Yeah, oddly. It's so bizarre, dude, what's going on in the Middle East, dude, with that. It's so weird.
Oh, not even just there. Some of the islanders will just eat poop. They'll just eat it. That's what they do. They eat it. I don't know why. I have no idea what that's about. But they have rituals and things where they eat shit.
I think it's humiliation with them when it comes to Muslims anyway. Humiliate that Western horror, right? But Jeff said the Taliban actually put an end to that practice. Because they said they did, Jeff? Like they every other thing they said they did?
There's a principle in Islam It's very common. They use it all the time. It's called taqiyya. And that means they can lie to non-Muslims all they want.
Oh, sure.
Doesn't matter. As long as it somehow betters Islam, they can lie right to your face about anything, even the most abhorrent things that otherwise would be incredible sins for them. They were doing it to another Muslim. They can lie to you about it, as long as it benefits Islam in some way.
And I'm joking with Jeff. To be fair, the Taliban have actually tried to, I don't know if I want to use this word, modernize
Yeah, they have.
themselves. To a point, they have. They weren't willing to go too far, but they have done things like that. And with the Taliban being removed, we saw a return of that, and the American military had to deal with it. But I'm just saying that these are things that happen, that can happen inside of these weaker Muslim cultures. And we don't see these kind of things happening at anywhere near the rate inside of the Christian or Hindi or Buddhist culture, especially the Buddhist ones, because Buddhism is about self introspection and personal responsibility. So you see very
Mhm.
little of that in that. But with the Christians, the reason why is because the fear of God, dude.
Yep.
And
It's a good
it's a
thing.
real problem. It's a real problem with Islam. And you're not allowed to talk about this for some reason. Why can't we point out the real problems that are existing in it? They'll sit there and bash Christians all day long, even though they're some of the nicest, most charitable people, the people that brought us this modern society. We wouldn't have this nice, happy, safe little society today if you didn't have Christians, by the way. Right?
Yeah, it's true. To some extent, we wouldn't have it without the Muslim scholars as well. They helped.
Sure.
But yeah,
But that
correct.
was when they were allowed to be scholarly. And understand that
Yeah.
in their inception they weren't, because all of those generals of Muhammad went around and burned books gleefully. It wasn't
Yep.
until the Ottoman Caliphate that they actually became very intellectual, and they were amazing at it, right? But not
Yep.
anymore. You're not allowed to read foreign things. How many imams? And keep in mind, an imam is not only a priest; he's also a general. Remember this.
Yes, sir.
It's important, right? Their general concept we get out of them these days is that you need no other book in your life beyond the Quran and his hadith. That's all you need in your life. You need nothing else. That is what modern Islam is pushing right now. And when you get an imam or a scholar or coming out of Islam, an actual Muslim, an actual Islamist, that'll get up there and argue, well, that's not really what Muhammad wanted, yada yada yada. They disappear mysteriously. There's a
Mm-hmm.
famous Australian one who is pushing very hard back against that. He's an
Yep.
actual guy from Iran or Kuwait or something like that, and he's
Iran.
well, yeah, he's an actual, Islamic scholar, a real one, and he was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's not really what Allah wants us to do. That's not really correct, and he was doing it very gently and very scholarly way, and he's dead now. He's
Mm-hmm.
gone. And there are many other examples. So you're not allowed to speak out about it. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, they will find you, right? And
Yep.
that's the situation we have. And why did I get on this tear? Well, because when we allow ideologies that are just simply wrong on the very face of them,
Mm-hmm.
we are inviting this. And when harm comes to us, can we really be surprised? Can we really be outraged? We allowed that to happen. And this current goat, polyamorous goat man here,
Yes.
and
Just say
he's
it. You can
part
go,
of
fucker.
this. Well, yeah, exactly. But he's part of this ideology that not only is being said that they should be allowed to do what they want, we should tolerate it. Oh, no, no. We should accept it. And beyond acceptance, we should indoctrinate it. You see. And for me, it's no different the harm that it shall bring, and we see it. We don't need
Mhm.
we don't need to speculate. We can see the harm is no different than the hardcore Islamists and the nasty things they do all over, whether it be from
Yep.
having sex with little kids, degrading non-Muslim women, or simple murder.
Yep. I agree. It's untenable. And you don't, even if, okay, say you don't want to look around and you say you don't think it's causing harm today. Okay, fine. Read history. Just in the last 100 years, read history. When these sorts of things are being promulgated in a society, any society, it doesn't last. And it always ends terribly.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah, we
There's
talked
not
about
an
that.
exception. Not a
Yeah,
single one. Even the evil Nazis. One of the main reasons they rose to power was this kind of shit was all over the
that's
place
right.
in Berlin, especially.
Oh yeah,
And the people had enough, and they turned to somebody they didn't fully understand, and they supported him because he put a stop to it.
right. And the Jews who control all the banking were easy to blame because they were
Yep.
usurers. They were.
Yes.
And Elrod said something. Damn, Elrod, you surprised me, sir.
Uh oh.
Christians hate only hate only bashed are only bashed because there's no fear of retaliation, only forgiveness. That's right. That's right. Christianity and all its flaws, the bureaucracy of Christianity, particularly the Catholics. Well, no, the Protestants too, but the bureaucracies are always bad, no matter where you find it. Bureaucracy is this slogging, disgusting thing that we find
Mhm.
in all manner of life. But the idea of Christianity is what brought us the Enlightenment. It's what brought us to where we are today.
Mm.
Because you don't hear about Christians going out and mutilating people very often because it's just not in the book. It ain't there.
Right.
Quite the opposite is. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not a Christian. You know this,
Yeah.
but I see the value of it.
No, it's there's the other aspect of it. We've had roughly 100 or so years where secularism has been the cat's pajamas, right? It's been what's promoted. It's been what's been considered the objective reality, the objective way to look at the world, yada, 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 yada. For that, it was much more theological, the world, the ordering of the universe, and the way we understood it. Now, I'm not saying secularism is necessarily wrong, but since we've taken God or a God out of that role, the atheistic or non theistic, I guess would be even a better way to put it, version of the world has not produced a moral code
No.
that creates a society of virtue
Well,
anywhere.
it's impossible to do so because
Yeah,
that is all about aggrandizement and self entitlement. There
yep,
is nothing. One of the problems with atheism or non-theism, as you had said, is that you have nothing above you, right? And
correct.
when you have nothing above you to cow your actions and your thoughts, you have to do it yourself. And simple fact of the matter is, most people are incapable of doing this.
Correct.
They don't
It's a
have
sad
the
fact,
integrity
but it's
to do
true.
it, right? Because and
Yes.
it's not easy. It's something you have to constantly check yourself about because it is very easy for humans to become arrogant, particularly in this age. There's
Hmm.
nothing to fear, right? So you have to fear your own actions, and most people are not introspective enough to be able to do that.
It's one of the things you were talking about, why, like the Japanese, for instance, can handle their business in that manner without necessarily involving government.
Mhm.
It's because they do have a deep seated fear of societal forces, shame and guilt
That's right.
specifically.
Yeah,
And that's a good thing.
sure.
So that people point out and say atheists will do this often. Japan's a very atheistic country. There's not a lot of deep seated theologians coming out of Japan anytime soon.
They
But
have.
that doesn't
I
mean they
wouldn't
don't.
call them atheists. I call them that
Well,
they
not
don't have
I'd.
an ethos.
Yes, exactly. They have a non. It's a non-specific form of it. And okay, that's fine, but they still have a god. They may not conceptualize it in that archaic way, but there's a societal shame. It's dishonor. It's honor.
Yeah, they're
That's what it is.
traditionalists, is what they are. Ancestor
Yeah.
worship. They're really their animism is still strong here. But no, you're right.
Yep.
And it's not just. I mean, it's. I'm in Japan, so I have so much information to share, and I think they do it more efficiently than most. But then again, the Japanese are pretty
Mhm.
efficient people. But you can find this is true about many cultures in the world, right? They have a sense of responsibility and civic duty. It's quite common. This Western obsession with me is
Hmm.
unique to that. Most cultures in the world, whether they are successful or not, don't have that. It's more about we, it's more about responsibility, it's more about cohesion for us to be able to move forward and survive. It's a very Western ideal, and the reason is because the West, you know what I think killed America. I know a lot of people want to say it's the hippie movement or something like that, or the women's right movement. I don't think so. I think what screwed us over was getting off of the gold standard and turning the dollar into the world reserve currency. I think that's what fucked us.
Yeah. It made us too affluent, and then but it was a fake affluence because it's debt based. So
It
yeah,
is.
you can ride that for a while, especially on a big, powerful country like America. You can ride that wave for a generation or two or three, but eventually that toll's coming due.
Yeah, yeah. And for
And
those,
I
yeah,
think we're getting real close to that
maybe.
toll coming due.
Maybe we can be hopeful. And if any of you is saying, what did this have to do with Ezra Miller? Every fucking thing.
Yes, literally, the entire reason he is the way he
Yes,
is what we're talking about.
that's right. But I'm going to move on to more. I don't know. I'm curious what your opinions are on this. Go ahead, dude.
Saints Row reboot character creator replaces gender options with sliders for specific body type, body parts, reduces max breast size. See, this is weird. It's this weird androgyny, whatever the word is,
Right,
that these companies and this whole culture we're talking about apparently wants to force onto into the zeitgeist.
right.
That no women with big tits exist. My wife is a myth, Chester. She doesn't exist. She's a
Clear,
myth. She's a unicorn,
clear.
obviously.
Yes.
Um, because we can't have big-breasted women in games, and my
Well,
wife makes comments about it all the time in video games and in
right.
movies. That where's the big boobs? Why can't I have a big boob girl? That I have big boobs. Why can't there be a big boob girl? She likes to
Yeah.
play the big boob characters for
Yeah, I
many
know.
various
And
reasons.
God bless her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Grimlock, I don't know this game, Saints Row. I never played it. I know it was popular, but I just never got around to it. Does this game allow modding?
Um, if there's a PC version, yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
of course,
sad to
PC
see
version.
what
Yeah, yeah.
Saints Row has become. It really
Well,
is, because Saints Row used to be a genuinely fun game that was built on the parody of Grand Theft Auto.
sure. And it looked like by watching trailers and seeing people gameplay it that it became quite fun and interesting, different and weird, and that's nothing wrong with that. And the reason I say it is because modders will fix whatever they do anyway. However,
Nobody's gonna play this game though. Not even the
maybe not,
modders.
maybe not. But the first
No.
part of the statement, I have no problem with whatsoever. Right? Saints Row reboot character creator replaces gender options with sliders for specific body parts. Okay. I have no problem with that. I actually have no problem with you making your character to be anything you want it to be. I don't have any problem whatsoever. You go. But I don't know. We have to reduce the max breast size though. That seems unfortunate.
Well,
But
that's my problem with it. Is not so much. Well, obviously, I like big old titties,
yeah,
but also is when you do these two things together, the only thing I can assume of your intention is to try to make some kind of weird androgynous thing,
okay.
and
And you should
that's
be able
just
to
not
do
how
that.
that's just not how people exist. Yeah, but you can't do it the other way. I can't go in there and make the sexiest woman alive with these big,
Well,
giant, sexy, bouncy titties because
go
they reduced my ability to do that.
go play a Korean game then.
No, here's the solution. Fuck Saints Row. Fuck the company who makes that game. They haven't made a good game in a decade, and they will never make another good game. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't get shut down after this flop.
It is a shame because the last one got a lot of noise. It sounded like it was a lot of fun. You can make all kind of characters. You can kind of do the superhero thing. It sounded like the series had become really, really fun. And I watched the trailer for this and other things, and it just seems odd. So you can
It,
increase your groin site to 100%, and I know how you feel, brother. But you can. Okay, well, this is a man. So are we going to get an example of something other? And wow, they actually have nudity in it.
Yeah.
well, the
Yeah.
part of, the big part of what Saints Row was that Saints Row didn't take itself seriously. That was
That's right.
the major appeal about Saints Row. Yeah, you could make this character, like you said, huge wang, huge titties or no titties or little. You could go whatever direction you wanted, but the point of it was that it was it was a version of GTA it's making fun of GTA
Hmm.
while still giving you a very competent game, and it did have a story. And the moment I saw the trailer to this, and it just looked like the story basically looks like a CW TV show.
Oh,
Nobody's buying this bullshit.
so they've reduced it from this size to that maximum? Wow, that's not even that's
Yeah, it's
like
pretty
my
noticeable.
wife's size, and she's like middle of the road.
Yep.
But whatever. It's just more dumb stupidity. Why don't you just have it where it's set? You can do whatever you want. Have it be big or small or whatever you choose. Like I say, because I don't have a problem with that. I mean, like for instance, some of the video game tropes or modern day tropes of the muscled lady, the big buff dyke, lesbian who's way over muscled for what her body frame can actually handle. Now, I in real life would not ever approach such a woman because it's unattractive, right, to me. But
Yeah.
as far as in a game trope, I have no problem at all with it, right? So I don't understand their desire to force you into doing something because these kind of games are there to let you do whatever you want to do. Isn't that the idea?
It used to
Used to
be.
be.
And you could do stuff like this to some degree in the old ones. Like you could do all kinds of weird looking monstrous creatures. I don't remember if they had genitalia options or not, but you could do all sorts. I mean, you could make your character look all sorts of funky. So the real issue I have with it is it's clearly agenda based. Why would
Of
they
course,
reduce the
obviously.
ability to make giant fat titties and then add or change or whatever you want to call it, alter the ability or create the ability to make this weird androgynous man thing?
Right.
Unless it was agenda based. There's no good reason
Oh,
to do
obviously
that.
it
If you
is.
want to just expand the options, right? Then cool. Expand the options all you want. I don't care. Like I've been playing WWE games forever, and you can make all kinds of creatures in that thing. At least you used to be able to.
Dude,
All
isn't it
different crazy proportions.
Isn't it weird that some of the best character creators in gaming are in wrestling games? Why is that?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's awesome.
Because
I don't
they
know
let you
why.
because they allowed you to be over the top with it. It's like, here,
Yeah,
Yeah, just
have
have
fun.
fun. And once again, as we see with a lot of these things, it's the opposite of fun. Fun. It's the antithesis almost of fun, because you're not supposed to be having fun. You're supposed to be spreading the message. But whatever, dumbasses. Yeah, I mean, you had money to print here, guys. What are you doing? Anyway, moving on.
Fan artist show. Oh God. Fan artist shows what Lady Gaga could look like as Harley Quinn in Joker 2. First of all, we don't need a Joker 2. I'll take one if it's as good as the first one, but we don't need one. And
No.
second of all, we absolutely don't need Lady Gaga anywhere near the motherfucker. I
Oh,
don't even want her. I don't even want a Lady Gaga song in it. Nothing. Get that creature
right.
ass, fucking spirit cooking, devil worshiping ass away from that movie. Get them out of there.
Now, let me alleviate your concerns. Because here, just to show you what it looked like, it's not so bad. But she's not that young anymore, Mr. Art Creator. But here's the thing: this was what Hamada and his people were going to do with Joker 2. Not only,
Yep.
and the reason why they brought Lady Gaga in to be Harley Quinn because they were making a musical.
I
Soak it in. Take the
I
pain.
hate it.
Yeah, of
I
course you
hate
do.
all of it.
It's the
Yep.
worst possible idea for the Joker sequel. for the Joker.
Yeah.
If you want to make a musical with DC characters, go ahead, but not with the sequel to the Joker and Joaquin Phoenix literally singing duets with Lady Gaga. But that was Hamada's plan. That fucker Hamada, right? But here's the great thing. Zaslav fired all those bastards. He hadn't officially fired Hamada, but all the information coming out is he's out the door. So this Joker 2 with Lady Gaga, the musical, is dead in the water. You're not going to see it. It's not going to happen. Thank God. Because
Yeah.
I can't even understand. Please explain to me how you can be so delusional, Mr. Hamada, that you think that movie, The Joker, its sequel, should be a musical. Explain to me the amount of freaking drugs you're doing that makes that in any way sensible. Please. I can't even believe that they were working. Yes, I know Flying Saucer, dude. It's literally what their plan was. Literally. But seeing as all the people who greenlit it and stuff, other than Hamada, have been fired, right, by Zaslav, it's not going to happen. But I just can't even understand why it was it. When I'm not talking about they were talking about maybe doing it, they were literally doing it. That was in action.
Yeah.
That was the plan. Grimlock, help me understand.
It hurts.
It hurts, dude.
You will get no such help from me because I don't understand it either. I don't want to understand it. As I had previously stated, I hate what has been done to Harley Quinn. I hate how they have completely ruined what was once a interesting character beyond repair between the New 52 and the nutcases on social media who pushed and pushed and got them to turn Harley Quinn into a lesbian because they wanted it. Um, I, I don't care. Like I got the old stuff. I got Mad, the book Mad Love. I got all the old stuff. I got Harleen. You can burn her to the ground now. You've
Yeah,
given me
no.
no reason to care about that character ever again.
And you know that I have
Um,
no love for Harley Quinn myself. But
mm.
I don't know
Yeah, but
why, Roger, it matters that Gaga's Jewish. Of course she's Jewish. She's an ugly Jew girl that couldn't, well, no, she is. She's an ugly Jewish girl who
Yeah.
is radically talented. I mean, really, really good singer. And she wanted to get into the industry. So how do you do that? Well, you wear fucking meat suits. That's how you do that.
Mhm.
You act like you're outrageous and weird because there's nothing weird about her. You can see now her true colors have come out.
oh no,
That was
she's
all marketing, all of it, and it's simply because she's a really talented girl, but she's way too ugly to sell. And that's what Lady Gaga is.
Uh, don't care. Don't
Don't
want her
care.
anywhere near the Joker too.
Sure.
Don't
Well,
give a
it
no
just
she
doesn't
shit.
make sense.
she
Yeah.
has no she has no other than that it's a name and that's another thing I'm kind of tired of is that you know this idea that you have to attach big names or otherwise people won't watch or care because you know I hope people in Hollywood realize that a lot of people in this country or worldwide are not so attached to celebrities anymore
Oh, thank
where they
God.
are
That's a good
so
thing.
obsessed with this
Mm,
shit because like I'm gonna be honest 80% of the time I don't know who these motherfuckers are.
sure. Sure. And
Like when people talk about, oh, you know, this guy should be cast in whatever movie, and it's like I don't know who this person is. Like,
right.
could you give me a photo to go by?
Well, I mean, if they want to make, the Joker, it's, I agree. We don't know who they are anymore, and that's good. The Joker thing is just ridiculous. If you want to make a music with Lady Gaga, go right ahead, because it's much better than giving Madonna another bite at the frickin' apple. I mean, my God, what a absolutely ridiculously bad actress, and she has nowhere near the vocal chops of Lady Gaga. Because that's the one thing about Lady Gaga. Like I just explained, they just tried to figure out a way to market her because she's a really good singer, dude. She's
Yeah,
really,
she could
really
sing.
good.
I'll give her that. I give her
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And but they just had to figure a way to sell it, and and creepy, odd with oversex, which is weird because I'm not interested in her body any more than I am Miley Cyrus's body. They're kind of weird
My
spider
hairs ain't got no damn
creatures.
body.
Well, they're bizarrely shaped, and I don't understand why, especially with Miley Cyrus. And talk about unattractive. I mean, why do you keep pushing the sexual angle when you're really there's nothing bangable about that girl?
If there was ever a poster child for why breast implants exist, it's Miley Cyrus.
Well, she just has a weird spider body, dude, which is fine. I mean, that's okay. I mean, she was born that way. But why are you flaunting that spiderness? I don't get it. you know but lucky for that girl, the Hannah Montana thing made her very popular, and then she had one song that was really good. It wasn't even a good song, it was just ultra catchy. Party in the USA. My god, I don't know who gave that to her, but that was a very marketable song, dude. Very marketable. Perfect for her. So I don't want to take any success away from Miley, but I don't understand her obsession with dildos, though. It's a bit weird. Yeah, but then again, you saw Chris. Speaking of stellar, generation level singers, Christina Aguilera, another
Overrated.
ridiculous well, dude. Yeah, her voice is insanely good, dude. I know she gets a
She's
little bit full
overrated.
of herself and she does too much of that shit. But when she's being serious, that girl can sing,
She
right?
also dances around in front of children with giant dildo
I know.
strap-ons
That's what
attached
I
to
was
her.
getting to.
Pridefully.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
fuck her. But
yeah.
I think what I'm trying to say is no, we don't need a musical for Joker. Thank God it's not going to happen. And Lady Gaga, go find I'm
No,
sure you
no,
have
no.
she's
Do some girls.
connected. She's connected. She got money. I'm sure she could do something else. Okay. But yeah, ew. Okay.
Yeah, it looks ridiculous. Yeah. Oh, Chrissy Poo. Chris Evans calls critics of Lightyear's gay kiss idiots as his film is banned in the Middle East. First of all,
14.
Chris, buddy, Cap, old Cappy Poo. Um, I don't care if you're in that movie. The fact that Buzz Lightyear himself isn't in the movie called Lightyear,
Yeah.
in the animated movie called Lightyear, I have no interest. None.
Yeah.
Tim
Well,
Allen is perfectly capable of still being Buzz Lightyear. He should have still been Buzz Lightyear in that movie. There's
yeah.
no reason other than politics he's not, and it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it is. Yeah.
it's yeah. You got a movie that's supposed to be a Buzz Lightyear origin movie. He's not in it, and they want to make a big deal about this gay kiss. And my whole point of it is, why is that in it in the first place? And it's not about relationships or anything. It's supposed to be a Buzz Lightyear origin movie. Unless he's gay himself, why
Okay.
do I need to know this is in there?
Well, let me help you
Why?
out with that then. Now, first of all, it's 14 countries have banned it, and some of the countries will ban anything that has a kiss. But as soon as I saw that number, I was like, oh, okay, something more is going on. I actually researched this a little bit. I don't know why, but I did. First of all, Thundera, you're 100% right. Tim Allen, there's no reason. The only reason he's not in there because he's a Christian Republican. That's it,
Yeah.
right? But here's the reality, because the female lead, who is the female lead, Buzz Lightyear is not the lead in this movie. She is, and I'm going to break this down to you. Her parents are two ladies. I don't know how that's possible, but there you go. And the concept of this movie, Lightyear, is this is the movie that Andy saw that got him excited about Buzz Lightyear and why he bought the toy. Okay. And the idea was it was supposed to be like Star Wars esque. Now, instead, what they did was they took and created Christopher Nolan's Martian. Now, I'm a bit confused, especially seeing as you could have parodied the hell out of Star Wars because the same company owns both.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Disney owns Toy Story. They also own Star Wars. They do it with Lego, right? And other things like that. They could have parodied the hell out of this and it could have been a fun movie. But no. Some reason you're going to take a kids movie, which is supposed to be the movie that Andy saw, little 7, 8-year-old Andy, right? And this is what got him, maybe even 6-year-old Andy, and got him into Buzz Lightyear. Therefore, it's a kids movie, right? But you decided to base it upon The Martian, an incredibly boring slog movie that I would not force the torture upon any child to watch.
Mhm.
So already the concept is sideways, right? But here's the thing: not only do you have the gay lesbian black girl and her gay lesbian parents kiss, what you also have is during the course of this Martian-esque story, where Buzz really isn't the hero anyway, he comes to realize that he's gay too. So Buzz doesn't have a kiss, but he is gayified because he understands that he's actually a gay man. So now, taking this prequel here, or this movie that has inspired the idea of Buzz Lightyear, what you've done is you've taken every other Toy Story movie and flipped it on its head, because now we have to question, why was Buzz helping out Woody? Mhm. Maybe there was an alternative motive for old Buzz because he wanted to get with the Woody. And then the absolute heartbreak when Bo Peep came and stole him away. You do realize the ridiculousness of what I just said, right?
That's
Very
the
much.
plan.
Freaking children's
That was
fantasy story,
that
you
was the
dumb shits.
first thing I thought of when you said that they gate up Buzz.
They
Is
did.
that's the plan? They're gonna turn him and Woody into some kind of gay situation. Why? Who does that help? Oh, it helps gay kids. Shut up. Who does
Shut
that
up.
help?
Yeah,
No such
shut up.
thing.
First of all, Grimlock and I especially, grew up. We were of the age, or we were a little older, but right around the age of where Toy Story was marketed to, right? A kid's family movie. The first one.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us, I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody learned any kind of romantic sexual lessons from Toy Story. Maybe I'm misremembering Toy Story, but I don't
Did.
remember there being any sexuality,
No.
lality at all.
It's wholesome
No.
life stories, right? And besides, they keep going about that it's for the gay kids. Well, what about the other 97% of children? What about them?
First of all, there's no such thing as gay kids. They need to
No,
cut that
there
shit
isn't.
out.
You're right.
Number
Yeah.
two, you want to talk about, oh, but it's a story about coming to grips with who you are. That's what Buzz had to do in the first movie, you assholes.
Yes, it's exactly what
Because
he had
he
to do.
thought he was the real Buzz Lightyear throughout half the fucking movie
That's right.
until he tried to fly and broke his arm.
That's right. Yeah.
So, like, the
And he
fuck?
had a good friend in Woody who didn't mock him, but came along and had compassion for him. Oh, yeah.
And that's the problem. That's a big problem. This idea that men can't have normal friendships. We've had for a half a generation now where it's just weird to see. It seems like in movies because they don't
Yeah, you
do
know,
it anymore. Because that these weirdos turn it into, oh, they're gay together. They want to have sex with each other. They love each other. No, they're just friends. The fuck?
Yeah, no, that's
can't be
another
male
problem.
friends no more. So when I go to visit Thundara for the first time, I'm just gonna have to shove the missus aside. Like, you understand, this is a friendship thing. This has nothing to
Yeah.
do with you. You're just
Got
being
nothing
friends.
to do. Yeah, we're just.
Now,
This is
see
how
you in a half
friends
hour.
behave.
Yeah.
We'll see you in a half
Yeah,
hour.
it is weird that they want to do that with everything. Dave, Mr. Potato Head is a pussy whipped Cliff Clavin.
Yep.
Please, sir.
And even though, yeah, okay, Mr. Potato Head and Mr. Potato Head are married. Well, for one, that's branding because they are in the toy.
Yeah,
And
sure.
two,
It's funny.
the only way you could even infer any form of sexuality from that is because they're married and married people have sex. Little kids don't think like that.
No, they don't.
Adults did, sure, but little kids don't think that way.
Yeah, no. And you could throw innuendo in for the adults, sure, but Toy Story saw no need to do that for obvious reasons. But this is why 14 countries banned Lightyear, not because mom and mom had a kiss, because they literally gayed up Buzz Lightyear, literally. And and not only that, it's just the complete concept. Because I bet you one of the idiots over there at Pixar was like, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna make an aged up version of Lightyear for the kids who watched it when they were younger that are now adults. We're gonna make it an adult version, yay!" But yet the whole marketing and the whole story concept is that of a movie for a little kid. This is the idiot conversations that happen. This happened. right? So yeah, and then of course the disrespect of Tim Allen on top of it, which is no reason. This guy hadn't done anything to anybody. He's just a dude, right? And he's
Tim
been
Allen has lived a harder life than probably anybody working for that company. The dude was in jail for extreme crimes, hard crimes. He was a drug dealer. He was a criminal most of his young adult life before he found comedy and turned his life around. Um, he doesn't deserve that level of disrespect for anything he's done. And as far as I know, he's done nothing except be be not. He's not even really a conservative, but just compared to them, he is. He's just middle American. It was one of the things that was so appealing to him, or from him, about him, was the fact that him and like a Roseanne, right, were just middle American people who happened to be funny as shit, and were able to turn that funniness into a lot of money. There was nothing uniquely special about him other than that he knew how to relate to common Americans because he was one. He had a really hard life. He was in jail for felonies and all sorts of things like cocaine. I think he was a cocaine dealer or something like that.
and he turned it around.
And he turned his life around. And he's a Midwestern boy. He's still today. I live just outside of Michigan. All the time I hear commercials on the radio with Tim Allen promoting Michigan. He's their official spokesman. Tim Allen is the whole state. So this blacklisting by Disney, which is exactly what it is, blacklisting by Disney of him for no other reason than he might be conservative or he is conservative, allegedly. That is enough for me not to support this movie because it's completely ridiculous. It's a completely ridiculous thing. He's done nothing wrong. He said nothing wrong. He didn't come out and make some horrifically racist statement or anything like that. He's not down with your bullshit. That's it. That's his sin. He doesn't agree with you.
And thank you for correcting me, Chad. Mr. Pig was actually Cliff Clavin, and Don Rickles was Mr. Potato Head, which I didn't even know that. Thank you very much, Chad. But anyway, you get the idea. So yeah, this is way more of a train wreck than you think it is. Yeah. So good job, Pixar. Good job.
And that's all right. Listen, they're making these movies for this tiny little audience of weird Western white liberals who love this shit, and no one else on planet Earth does. No one. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. No other culture on the planet besides white liberal culture is about this life, about this shit.
No, it's true.
And yet,
it's true.
This is who they're making these movies for and marketing them to. They clearly, everything else be damned, because they're not going to stop even when they get banned out of multiple countries. Now, in fairness, movies get banned out of countries for all differing reasons. Sometimes they're ridiculous, sometimes they're not. But yeah, they don't care. I understand the capitalist argument. Disney's not a capitalist company. They haven't been for a long time. I don't know where they get all their funding from, but they just simply don't give a shit about making money. Or they would have stopped a long time ago.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. But so they wasted money. But the thing is, the last good Pixar movie I saw was Coco, and that was a very heartwarming, good movie. I enjoyed that quite a bit. My family liked that. And I know there was a new movie that came out that it just got review bombed to hell. I don't know why. But was Encanto. Anybody know anything about that?
I do not.
No, I had no interest in it. So.
I don't know. But people really didn't like it. I know that, and my kids are out of the house, so it's not something I watch. But I don't know. I don't know what Pixar is doing or Disney in general. But but the last good movie I saw was Coco. You guys see Coco?
No, I did not. I don't watch these films.
Oh, that's a great heartwarming movie. You should watch it.
I mean, I'll check it out, but I don't go out of my way to watch them. Disney, especially, has been on this. People act like this is new. Disney's been about this my whole life. They were just far more insidious with it before. Now they're just right in your face because the culture permits it.
Fair.
But it's always been there. It's always been there if you know where to look. Always.
Oh, no, it's true. Jeff says Up. And yep, Up was a really good movie. The first 3 Toy Stories are pretty good. The fourth one was a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
But that was all about, that wasn't really Toy Story. That was the Chronicles of Bo Peep, really. Which, fine. Why don't that's another thing. I don't understand why they just don't label things what they are. Like The Witcher should not have been called The Witcher. It should be called the story of Yennefer or something, like that. Because if you separate it and you take Geralt out of it, which I did love the few moments that Henry Cavill's on the screen. But if you take that out of it and you just look at it as the story of Yennefer, it's pretty good, dude. It was solid.
Yeah, don't suck.
It was really good.
Yennefer's a good character. The serious problem there is she's not supposed to be this important to
No,
the story.
but I'm just being honest. It's like the Wasp and Ant-Man and the Wasp. No, it's the Wasp. Just
Yeah.
label it properly. I don't know what you're doing. Lucas was good, apparently. I don't know that one. Coco was excellent, says Alan. Yeah, it was really good. But anyway, I'm going to move on from this. But if you're wondering why there's so much noise, because unless you got little kids, you're not going to go see this anyway. But if you want to understand the noise that's coming out of this, it's not just because the black character girls' moms have a kiss. It's not. It's deeper than that. They literally gay up Buzz Lightyear, literally. But anyway, moving on. Speaking of,
My man, WWE Chairman Vince McMahon, under investigation for hush money payments to ex-employees. Now, I only know of one employee. Was there multiple?
are you surprised?
No. In fact, if this is what gets him, I'll be upset. Because this man has been involved in every kind of scandal there is
Oh yeah,
for the last 40 years. I mean, there isn't a kind that exists. His name hasn't been brought up incredibly. It doesn't.
that's fair.
Every kind of scandal you can imagine, his name has been credibly brought into by people who have, let's just say, a credible claim to
Well,
the
no,
truth of it.
he's a criminal. We know this.
Yeah.
We know that is about Vince McMahon. We're well aware of all his nonsense. Even if it's not purely criminal, boy, is it on the line. He likes to walk that line. But do keep in mind, this is not a federal case. This is something being done by his board of directors, so it's internal.
Which is run by his daughter. So,
Right. And her husband. But supposedly. There is investigating a secret $3 million settlement that longtime chief executive Vince McMahon agreed to pay to a departing employee with whom he had an affair, according to documents and people familiar with the board inquiry. Well, how many millions of dollars, whether they be actual dollars or in some form of a diamond or something, or contract or something like that, has he done over the years? How many women do you think this guy has cheated on his wife with? I mean, honestly.
hundreds, at least
Honestly.
hundreds. He's been a billionaire for 25 years, whatever it is.
Right.
He's been a multi-millionaire for 35,
Yeah.
if not more.
Yeah.
Yeah, multiple. And let's be honest, when it comes to these type of guys, that's common. It happens all the time. This isn't any. This really even shouldn't be a scandal, except for the fact that he used hush money to hush her up, and apparently I would imagine they got some pressure from one of their sponsors or something, and that's the only reason why it is.
Probably.
Because this happens all the time
All
with
the
these
time.
wealthy men. The
Yeah.
women who marry these men know this, and they accept it. That's really the truth of it. It's just perfectly normal behavior in these circles. Now, I'm not saying it's good behavior, but it is. But it's what they're all doing.
Well,
Any of
sure.
these super rich men like him are doing this thing, guaranteed.
Because
Guarantee it.
they have the option, and the women get the golden chariot, of course.
Yep.
And but beyond that, the ego of Vince McMahon specifically makes Donald J. Trump look like a Laotian ascetic.
A Laotian ascetic. That's good. Yeah, no, ego. And the best part about Vince is he owns it.
Oh
He
yeah.
is not ashamed of that fact at all. He knows what he is. He's completely okay with who he is. And he just doesn't give a shit if you don't like it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. Now, this isn't probably going to go anywhere because, like I said, his daughter is the one who's kind of in charge of it. Or
He's
she's
kinda
in charge of
retired,
the
isn't he?
board.
He's not really involved
No.
with it anymore.
No, he was still running the whole company
Is he? I
himself
thought he
in
kinda
his
stepped
late
down.
70s. He kind of stepped back for a little while, but then things started to go sideways, so he took back over.
Mm,
And then he has a guy who is, I don't know what his official title is, but basically he runs most of the business side, named Nick Khan,
mhm.
and he's been running most of the business side for a few years now. But Vince himself was still and is still in charge of WWE Creative, and he was still the chairman and CEO of the company.
That's probably got
But
to change though.
he
But
stepped aside. His daughter's taken over those two jobs for now,
mhm.
which was eventually going to happen anyway. Let's be honest. Unfortunately, because Stephanie's a retard, but that was what was always going to happen. Um, but we'll see if this goes anywhere. I'd bet some money that it won't. That he'll get a slap on the wrist from the board, and he owns most of the company. Like there's only so much the board can do to him.
Right.
Right? He is the vast majority shareholder of this company.
Yeah.
So he could probably, it might take some legal doing, but he could probably just liquefy the board, or liquidate the board and get a new board if he wanted to. He has that much stroke.
Oh, sure. But the thing that's interesting to me, where you know this dude has slept with a bunch of the glam girls. You know he has.
Of course. Of
But
course.
this is coming out of a paralegal who they don't even name in the article,
Yeah.
which is weird. You have no trouble naming Vince McMahon, but not the other adulterer.
Yeah.
That's odd.
Well, Vince McMahon and one of his cohorts, one of his right hand men, who apparently Vince kind of just gifted her to him at one point, said, "Here you go, just have. I'm done with this. Basically, I'm done with this toy. It's yours now."
Sure.
He gets name dropped, but he's an officer of the company. He's been on air personality too, I guess. But still, it's like I don't understand that thing. I guess because they're pretending she's a victim. Doesn't sound like she was a victim of anything. She agreed to everything. She took the money. So if anything, she's a victim of being a whore. Like literally, here's from what I understand. Here's how the story goes. She came in as a paralegal, was making about six figures in that job in the law department of WWE.
Nice.
Right. When Vince started sleeping with her, he gave her $100,000 a year raise right out of the gate. Just boom, have $100,000 more. Then after that wound down, and they all apparently got done with her, maybe she was making noise that she was going to go to the press. He gave her $3 million of his own money to not do that, and it basically signed an NDA.
Right, but it
Which
sounds
she-
like they're accusing him of taking the money from WWE funds instead of his own.
Right.
And who knows? I mean, but he owns the company anyway. It is his funds. But whatever. I just thought it was interesting, a little bit of news, because when I saw the headline, and when I looked at it, and they're going into some of the other problems that they've had in the past. When I saw this headline, I was like, and
Yeah,
Vince
I personally
McMahon.
don't understand why some of these things are such a big deal. Like a lot of what Harvey Weinstein was accused of and apparently did do wasn't that big a deal. It was basically just these women were whores, and he treated them that way.
Oh no, yeah. Well,
Um,
Harvey only did one actual bad thing, just one.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a
Yes.
sleazeball, sure, fair enough. But he did one
Yeah.
thing. He did try to rape that Italian model. She ran to the
Correct.
police immediately, as you do, and that's what got him
Correct.
in real trouble. So
And he deserves it.
and
He should be under the prison.
Yeah. But the
But-
rest of the stuff is nonsense.
This here doesn't seem criminal in any way.
No.
You could say it's immoral because he's married and whatever, but
And it-
I mean, him and Linda McMahon have been married for 50 plus years. This isn't the first time, everybody. Let's not be naive.
and
This
for
is
all we
probably
know,
very common.
she's joined in on the fun.
Well, here's the funny thing. So about 5-6 months ago, I don't remember the exact time, 3 or maybe it was only 4 months ago. He did an interview with one of their commentators has a podcast, and he did an interview with him on there because he doesn't usually give interviews, Vince, but he did with him because he likes him and blah blah blah. And he accidentally said, or basically implied, that his wife Linda was his former wife Linda, and then he corrected himself immediately. And I just thought that was odd. I mean, they've been married a very long time. It's just not something you do when you're married that long. You don't make that mistake anymore. Well, I think we know why. They've probably been separated a very long time as well.
I think so, and like I made that comment, I didn't make it out of nowhere, because back in the '90s, I remember a little mini kind of scandal. There was hardly any information, but it was suggestive, innuendo, that she, Linda, was actually pursuing or in some kind of weird relationship with one of the female stars.
Mhm.
I forget, it wasn't Mick Foley, it wasn't him, it was someone like Mick Foley, had come out and said that well, those things happen.
Yeah.
And
Well, they
that, but
do.
and they do. But I mean, but it solidified it, and then they went into damage control and they shut it up, and no one talked about it. But I remember that happening way back. So they have an agreement, is what I'm saying. They have an arrangement between themselves, and that's fine. A lot of really wealthy people do. But I just thought it was strange because, if you know anything about wrestling, if you follow wrestling, you study the history of wrestling, you don't get more corrupt, especially with the old wrestling, old heads back in the 70s and in 80s,
Mhm.
60s even. You're talking about radical amount of corruption,
Yeah.
paying people off, literally putting hits on people. I
Yes.
mean, it is really, really, mafia-esque shit in old wrestling, and I bet you it's improved, but I can't imagine it's 100% cleaned up though. I can't.
Well, like like the actual mob, they went very corporate, right? They went legitimate, quote unquote. Like when the mobs basically took over the unions, they went legitimate. I'm using. Do you hear the air quotes?
Yeah,
Legitimate.
yeah,
And Vince did basically the same thing when his company went public. A lot of the stuff that he, used to do even on air, he couldn't get away with now because it's a publicly traded company, and he could be sued if it goes sideways. So that a lot of that is a necessity with his amount of money that his company generates now. Because WWE, even though culturally it's a smaller impact than when I was growing up, back when Grimlock and I were in high school, everybody watched wrestling. Everybody,
Yeah.
like it was weird to not know to not be watching wrestling. Now that's not the case. It's much more niche. But Vince still makes an obscene amount of money for
he
that
does.
that company does.
He's a good businessman, dude. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
In general, we don't agree with all the things like John Cena for one of his more recent debacles, but he still made money the whole way. And
Hmm.
yeah, Val Venus. I don't know if that was the one that did it, but Vince Russo, yeah. But it wasn't maliciously said though. I remember that scandal that came out, and
Hmm.
it wasn't malicious. It was just he got hit with a comment and he was kind of downplaying it really. It was just, oh, those things happen, right?
Yeah,
It wasn't
because they do.
malicious at all. It became something bigger than they wanted it to be. But I mean, I think there's been rumors about his wife being a little bit what's the terminology these days?
Lesbianic.
Yeah, okay, we'll go with that.
The
Yeah.
lesbianic woman.
Yes. But there's been rumors of
Saturday
that
at
for
9
quite
on
a
NBC.
while, actually. And, whatever. But I just thought it was a funny headline because, of course, Vince McMahon did something underhanded. It's fucking Vince McMahon, dude. I
Yeah.
would be disappointed. It's like, people got all upset that Donald Trump had sex with porn stars. I would be upset if he didn't.
Yeah. No. The weird thing is that we have pearl clutchers on the left who act like that's a terrible thing. How dare he
Oh,
have
wow.
sex
Really?
with like most Americans? There's a lot of reasons to dislike Donald Trump. For most Americans, and that ain't one of them. For
Yeah.
especially male Americans, we're like, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. Of course he
Yeah,
did.
of course he
That's
did.
what most of them would do if they had money. They'd be out there paying all their favorite porn stars and having a good time.
Yeah, just and it's
Yeah.
not like he hired her as a prostitute. She just was around, and he's throwing money around, and she just gave it up. I mean, those rich dudes, women give it up quick, dude. And that's the whole point he made. How crazy those groupies are. They'll even let you grab them by the pussy. Yeah,
Horrible.
it's horrible.
Horrible man for telling the truth.
Horrible. Yeah.
That's the weird thing to me with guys, even Vince McMahon to some degree. He doesn't. This is why he doesn't give interviews anymore. He just tells you reality. Now you don't have to like reality. You can rage against the dying of the light all you want, but the light's still going to die. You see, because reality is reality, And when you're a rich billionaire man of some even hideous, ghoulish ones, right? Women, there are women, not all women, but there are women who will throw themselves at you just ridiculously easy. They're easy as hell because you got money and power, and that's their jam. That's what they're about. They want a taste of that. Just what it is. You don't have to like it. It's just how the human race functions all over the world. By the way, this isn't a Western thing. It's every single society.
Yep, people are people. That is
My
true.
wife said she wouldn't be ashamed to marry for money. She don't see there's any shame in it.
No women are.
Yeah, they pretend like they are.
Well, yeah, the only people who would be ashamed of something like that would be a man, though. Not all,
Yes.
but that would be something a man would do, not a woman. They'll never shame for it because it's simply the acquisition of resources for you and your children, and it's not a
That's
bad
right.
thing. It's a good thing.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Use what God gave you, ladies. Use it. Men don't have it. Listen, if we had it, we wouldn't need you. You're valuable. We don't have it,
Yeah.
and we want it.
Well-
You got the one thing we cannot get for ourselves. The one thing is that.
Right?
Because we can, or Chester, we can get gay men to be decorators, but we can't get gay men to have vaginas, no matter
No.
how hard we try.
No, I don't even want to look at it. But and it is normal around the world because I've explained this before. Over here, being a successful man, you're expected to have a mistress. You're supposed to have one. That's normal.
Yep.
Right? And my wife, even though she and I have a much more Western style relationship, she wouldn't be pissed at me if I did. She'd be pissed if I put it in her face. She'd be pissed if I
Right.
embarrassed her with it. That's what would make
Right.
her mad. But if I did have a mistress, she would not even blink an eye. Right?
She just wouldn't want to know about it, basically.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, I don't want to hear about it.
That's right.
Yeah. And I understand that. I understand both ways about it. I understand, the Western, and it is largely a Western thing, not wanting to do that.
Mhm.
And I understand women who don't care.
Sure. Well, and over here, is particularly, you don't necessarily marry for love anyway. You're marrying to, it's kind of old fashioned. You marry for making a family. Now, my wife and I married for love. Like I said, our relationship is much more Western, which is why honestly, I've already gone into this. It sounds tiring to me. Why would I want to have to manage that?
Yeah, it sounds like work.
It sounds like work.
So
I'm
Chester, what you
busy
do is
enough.
you get an assistant who handles your penis assistant.
No,
That's her
no,
official title.
No, and that's what, another $3,000 a month. Thank you. No, thank you.
Oh, you're really paying big money over there. I get you.
Well, I mean, my standard pay for any of my employees is $3,000 a month, and a higher level, like a manager, gets like 4,500,
That ain't bad.
5,000.
So you're telling me I should come over and get a job? All right, I got you.
Well, I mean, isn't that normal standard pay?
Depends on what you're doing and where. But I just really would like to live in Japan, so that's really the incentive for me.
Yeah. I mean, but I also get bonuses and stuff, so it comes out to be more than that. It's more than 36,000 a year. It actually comes more out to be 40 something, because I do give the winter bonuses and the summer bonuses as Japan standardly does. But from my point of view, obviously I have to balance my business to be economically viable, right? But
Right.
and I need to have enough money to take care of my family and stuff. But in the same token, though, I want my employees to be happy. I want them to have enough money to live their life. I want them to, they're not just employees. I feel responsibility toward them. I want them to be able to live a good life. So I'm going to pay them as much as I can.
Yep.
And being as I'm a small business, I can get away with that, right?
That used to be the norm around for a while, but not so much anymore. You look at the data; it's disgusting how much the top's revenue has grown, their wealth has grown, their
Oh, yeah.
income has grown
Insanely so.
compared to
Yeah.
everybody else. The left has a point there. I give them props on that. That is ridiculous. The amount of, especially CEOs, chief executives,
Right.
how high their salaries have gotten while everybody else's has floundered
Well, and it's
is
funny when you see
ridiculous.
a documentary these days about, say, railroad barons or something from the past, and and of course they dig into them as hard as they can. It's like you realize those people were making nowhere near the same percentage of profit that a standard, successful business makes today. Not even close.
Right.
But
Exactly.
it's because it's beyond the pale. But no, Jeff, the workers in the sex castle work on tips. Yeah. So you know. Moving on to our last story of today.
What do we got here? Terror on the Prairie review, an authentic, riveting western that hits the bullseye. Oh boy! All right, Slade, leave the puns to nobody else because puns are stupid. No more puns, Slade. Get them out of here.
Now, this is interesting. I haven't seen this yet. I will check it out
Me too.
because the reviews seem to be generally okay. From
Especially
actual,
villain, especially Nick Cersei,
yeah,
big
yeah,
bad
yeah.
guy. That's the
I'm definitely going to check it out. But it is funny because this is Ben Shapiro's thing. And he's got his own, he decided he's going to be a movie maker now, and he opened up his own little movie making business. And he's a good manager, and he went and hired all the people that needed to get it done. And his movies he put out so far are okay. I mean, they're not bad, right? They're okay,
yeah.
so it's not a bad start. And but I'm going to check it out. But I find it interesting because I don't see Gina Carano as a lady on the prairie.
Not so much.
No. I would have made more sense to me if she was like they always have to have the rattlesnake near the kid. Oh God. But I would have made more sense to me if she was like a bounty hunter or something like that. But
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Um, you know what? She would actually make a decent. If you ever played Red Dead Redemption 2, if you were going to make a Sadie, now Sadie's a blonde girl, but if you were going to make that game into a movie, the character of Sadie Adler would be interesting. She doesn't necessarily have the right look for her, but I think she has the physicality in her acting, especially that she could
yeah.
pull it off because that
Well,
character in that game becomes a total beast.
that's the thing. She can, for the most part, sell a lady action hero.
Yeah,
She can sell that better than most anybody I can think of right now, anyway. So she does sell that pretty well. But I mean, that's okay. Like I said, the reviews on this are pretty okay. They're not negative, unless you're an SJW. Then, of course, it's the worst thing ever made, and she's somehow a Nazi again. But the reviews are, I don't care about those people, are fine, and it's enough to make me want to go check it out. So, and we're looking at
here's the funny thing. They consider her a Nazi when what that got her in trouble was trying to tell people not to
not
be
to be
Nazis.
Nazis. Yes, yeah, I know. And they are talking about some of the stars in it that really bring it up, level it out with her in it. It is her vehicle, but she's surrounded by some really good actors, Nick Cersei and Nick Nolte and some other people. So that's the good. Where's the bad? It is slow paced. Well, it's a western. It better be.
Yeah, they're supposed to be.
It's
That's
supposed
the
to be.
point.
Yeah, it's supposed
There's
to
a
be.
reason for that. It's called cinematic ambiance
Mhm.
because the West was supposed to be a slow, dull place until it wasn't. Right? There wasn't a lot going on out there. There weren't a lot of people. Wasn't a lot of hustle and bustle. It was just
Survival.
prairie living, survival.
Yeah.
So it was slow and dull and boring, and then until it wasn't. Right? Which is why a lot of westerns have these tight action pieces that pick up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're doing that on purpose, guys. It's cinematography 101. It's filmmaking 101. When you're in a genre, there's certain rules you have to follow, or else you don't make sense in that genre.
Sure.
And that is one great example. A Western should be slow build.
Yeah, I saw recently a season of a Western style TV show. I can't remember the name of it offhand, but it was rather dark. It had some horrific elements to it. Maybe even hinting of supernatural, maybe.
Hmm.
But it was more like a Western horror type of thing.
Yeah.
And It wasn't bad. I didn't mind it. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it though. But I'm going to check it out. I just want to talk about it because you know, good on Ben Shapiro for stepping in. A Jew. The
Hmm.
king of the Jews, by the way.
Oh no.
And But stepping in and saying no. Good on him, dude.
I've said for a long time, and our boy Razorfist agrees with me that westerns need to be the next zeitgeist of movies, the next thing. They need a renaissance because aside from everywhere else in movies, westerns haven't really been a big deal in a long time. There've been a few, standouts that were pretty good here or there, but they're sparse, right? But everywhere else, westerns are selling like freaking crazy. Some of the best TV shows going right now are westerns.
Yeah,
One of the biggest games of the last 5 years, Red Dead Redemption 2, is a western.
yeah,
Uh, like it's there. It's right there. There's a market for this. There's a hunger for this style of storytelling, this genre, and Hollywood is not catering to it in any real meaningful way. And I hope that that's going to change because I love me a good western. I grew up watching westerns. Chester, you grew up watching westerns. They're so ubiquitous to American culture.
sure.
Uh, I would love for a renaissance of modern westerns with proper storytelling and proper ambiance because it's very important. Look at like one of my favorites, High Plains Drifter. Not a lot actually happens in that movie, but a lot happens in that movie, and
Oh
that's
yeah,
how you tell a story in that genre. Is somebody said, I think it was Dave, tension and release is a great way to put it. That tension has to build. It has to build. You can let off a little bit of it, but it needs to keep building until a big crescendo near the end where, the bad guys typically lose, but not always, and the good guy wins and rides off or doesn't and goes out and guns blazing. Um, it just depends on the story you're telling, of course. But that whole form of storytelling carried America for 40 years. 40 years the Westerns dominated. From the 40s until the mid 70s, right? 30, 40 years, the Westerns just kept dominating. And there's a reason for that. And I really think we could tell these stories again, and we should tell these stories again on the big screen because they're just great. You can do really crazy shit in that genre. And
yeah,
people say, "Oh, everything's been done." Yeah, but it was done a long time ago. There's whole generations of people who haven't seen it. There's all kinds of westerns people talk about that I've never even heard of. That they're like, "Oh, this is one of the best ones ever." I'm like, "Never even heard of it. I'll check it out."
yeah.
And I've
Well,
watched westerns every day with my mom. She would sit there and just watch westerns all day long, and I watch them with her.
yeah, because they're good. They're fun. They're human
Yeah.
stories. But there was a board game that came out many, many years ago, and it was successful for a little bit. And but the concept I would love to see put into a series. Basically, you had these miners in this town, and they dug too deep, a la Tolkien, and they dug into a hellish portal, and it
Hmm.
released hell upon earth, literally, and it infected that entire area. But of course, if it went beyond that, but so at first the people were just kind of staying away because that area was deadly. But what happened is with the influence of the hell dimension on Earth's dimension, it was creating these kind of gem crystals. It was just causing them to grow. And these things would allow you to create magical equipment and magical stuff using old magic and stuff. And therefore, it created a rush of a sense to get into that area and harvest that. But of course, you have a problem because there's literally demons about. But
Interesting.
that concept in a western of the gold rush, but instead it's this like demon gems, and then you're adding like a steampunk esque magic to the western as well. Boy, I would
I like
eat
it.
that up, dude. I would eat
I
that
like
up.
it.
Yeah,
Well, that's one thing a lot of people forget, right? A lot of the West, the time frame is very especially the further east you go in America, is very Victorian.
Oh yeah.
Uh, you can play with that, man, and it's one of the things Red Dead Redemption 2 does very well. They play with that a little bit. Like it's very fertile ground. I've said before, I think I've even said it on here. Um, Civilizations, cultures, societies, whatever you want to call it, they have these differing ages about them that are foundational. So our foundational age was the age of the founders, the Revolutionary Age. Our foundational myth and our foundational heroes were the founders. We literally deified them in everything but name, right? We don't
Literally.
call them gods,
Literally.
but
Yeah.
for crying out loud, we built giant monuments and temples to them. But then our heroic age was the West.
Mhm.
This time frame was only what, 40 years, 50 years at most,
Something like
with
that.
the Wild West, and yet we had almost 100 years after it, almost 50 years of dominance in popular culture of it,
Yeah.
about it and around it. There's a reason for that, and that's because it was our heroic age. It was our age of myths and heroes. Now, some of them weren't heroes, but they were still treated in the classical sense as a hero, somebody
Sure.
who acts when others won't.
Well, think about
Um,
the most famous from that era. Most of them are outlaws.
yeah, they're outlaws. They're terrible people. The real people, anyway, were terrible, but they were romanticized and turned into these cavalier ne'er do wells who will stand up to the bad guys and shoot them down and all this nonsense. Um, but that sort of stuff is very important to the old phrase, the zeitgeist, to a culture of a society's culture, is to have that you can lean on. Every great civilization has it, has those two ages, a foundational age and then an age of heroes that like perpetuates the ideals of that culture. I think one of the reasons why the West has always been something that sparks everybody's imagination, every American,
Mhm.
is because that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it became. It became a mythological age for us. And I think we could tell those stories again, and we should. Now, with Daily Wire trying to suck some of the power out of Hollywood, and they're not the only ones. There have been a lot of movements
Sure.
that way, moving the power base of our culture away from Hollywood, which is a good thing. I think everybody would agree. That's a good thing, and maybe we can get some more classical American storytelling, because I've watched movies from all over the world. We do it the best. When we do our best with it, we do it the best.
Yeah, no,
I
we
think.
do that really well. And Ben Shapiro has absolute push. So,
Yes.
because I think people underestimate him in every way. Not only when they try to get in debates and think they can outtalk him like they can outtalk Jordan Peterson, which you can't.
Yeah.
But it's understanding his influence and his wealth. Do keep in mind that his bar mitzvah, when he was up there giving his little violin play, Larry King's the one that came up and introduced him and introduced him to the world as a man on his bar mitzvah. Larry fucking King.
Yeah.
This
He's got
boy is
connections.
deep, deep,
Yeah.
deep. So he can do these
It's
kind of things.
interesting. It's interesting, Chester, that you asked my favorite anime, and it happens to be a western.
Yeah,
Trigun is a western. No,
yeah,
no doubt. Cowboy Bebop is kind of a western. It's a little noir, a little western.
it is.
Um, it just an interesting coincidence that was the last. So I didn't know that, by the way. I had no idea that's where we were going. But I just think that there's something about that age, that time, that's magical in our minds, and we can do a lot with it. And if there's any chance of the American culture being resurrected or being, reformed, whatever you want to call it, it's going to start with a reimagining, and not in the postmodernist way, in the we need to tell these stories now way, of the Old West.
Sure.
And I really think that is, I hope I'm right, and that's where we're heading in the next 10 years or so. We're going to really get like a deluge of good Westerns. We don't need a fucking 1,000 of them like we had in the 60s or whatever it was. But it would be nice to have, you know, more than a handful come out in 5 years. That'd be great
Right.
if they're really good.
Well, I mean, get her done is the American spirit, right?
That's right.
And you can't get it done any more than you can on the frontier, because that's 100%. And the thing about it is kind of unique, because at that time in history, where else was there a real frontier going on that people were making happening, not the government, right?
Hmm.
Africa, of course, had its issues, and all over the world. But that was the citizenry making that happen, pushing into a true frontier, and and all the skills and gumption necessary to get that done. So and I think that's why it's so glorified.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think like that's what I was saying, right? The ideal of America, uh, of this country, its foundational principle is to believe in yourself, to get it done, to have the confidence to overcome great difficulty, because we take for granted that we're here. It's a miracle that the
It
United
is.
States of America exists. Period.
It is.
Historically, in any way you want to ratify it, whether you believe in God or you don't, doesn't matter. This is a miracle of history that America is here, and it took a lot of very hardworking people, not just people at the top, not just government, not just all these fanciful ideas we have. No, it took bastards. It took vulgar men and women out there doing the work, putting their nose down, and building a civilization where there really wasn't one.
No, that's true. It's true. And when you do involve the government, it usually was where all the heartache and trouble came out of, right?
Yep.
Because most of the frontiersmen, the settlers, homesteaders, they were able to work out much better relationships with the natives, and it was often the government screwing it up.
Yep.
That's the reality. But a lot of these places in the West were not forged at the at the fall of the Native American, but at the behest of them. And we never talk about that. All we talk about is Little Bighorn and Wounded Knee and all these kind of things. And General Custer. And if you go back and study that actual happened with that, it's nowhere near as big a deal as you think it is. That was an idiot is what that
Yes.
was.
He
Um,
was an
he
idiot.
was an idiot. So I mean, but a lot of times the government caused way more trouble than the people themselves have worked out, because it was people living lives dealing with people living lives directly, right? And
Yeah.
so were there violence amongst the Indians? Sure, especially around the period where the government was causing so much trouble that you get these breakaway castes like the Comanche, right? The
Yes.
Comanche were literally men that had broken away to murder white men because they had poisoned the land. And uh, you can't blame them per se. But
Hmm.
even amongst their own people, they were outcasts because they were murderous, right?
Yes.
Uh, uh,
Well, I only exist because, in large part, because of the government's meddling in the affairs of locals and Indians.
sure.
My ancestor on my mother's side came north because of the Trail of Tears. It was after the Trail of Tears, or I guess right after it, because most of them went west, but some split off and went north into the Ohio Valley, and that's where I came from.
Sure.
Um, that's the only reason I'm here is the person I am. Part of it anyway is because the government meddled at the behest of rich landowners because they wanted the Indian land. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just what it was.
No, it
Simple
was,
as that. They wanted
and
their land.
and that wasn't even really an Indian story. You have to understand
Correct.
who the Cherokee were. I would suggest you go study it, guys, because it's a very interesting bit of American history. The Cherokee are not the quintessential feather Indian. That's not what they were.
Correct.
And it was very political. Keep in mind, there were many Cherokee involved in the politics of America at that time. It was a complete land grab, money grab, 100%. It's not even closely related to the stories of the Lakota, which they simply chose the wrong side, let's be honest, or the Sioux, or the Cheyenne, or the Apache. These are very, very different stories than the Cherokee one. So,
Yep.
yeah.
And the Cherokee are today. The Cherokee Nation is still largely fighting to keep itself around. They were, I can't remember where they're headquartered at now, but they basically got the local school because there's so many
Upstate New
Cherokee there.
York, I think.
They got them to start teaching their language because they were afraid it would die out
Yeah,
because there wasn't enough native speakers anymore.
they should. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. They do it in Ireland too. They speak the old Gaelic and things
Yeah.
because they don't want it to die out. It's
As
the only
they
reason.
should. And the
Yep.
thing is, you can raise bilingual or polyglot children very easily. It's actually
Yes.
not that hard, dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know why Americans are, because in general, Americans are the most lingually stunted people on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Most humans, Japanese are about the same level, but most humans on Earth speak multiple languages. Most humans are polyglots. That
Right.
was the norm, not what you see in America, places like America and Japan. If you go to Europe, the average European speaks 5 languages, right?
Right.
And I know if when you say that to an American, it's like, oh wow, wow. No, it's normal.
Yeah.
It's
And
normal.
it's not as crazy as people think. It's just because we're not used to it here. Um, because a lot of those languages are very similar,
They
right? So
are
like German and English, for Christ's sake, I mean, they're very
very
similar.
similar.
I can understand well enough, probably, unless they're talking really, really fast. I can understand somebody speaking French enough to kind of get a general idea of what they're saying to me. And Spanish, I can just understand because I took it in high school.
Right.
But they're very, very similar languages. Some of them even have the same words or words that are basically the same. Um, so it's not really as outrageous as you think. Now,
Nope.
when you throw in some of those crazy Slavic languages, then it starts to get nuts. But
Well,
it's still the Romantic languages, which is most of the West, or pretty much all of the West, is they're very, very similar. Very
right.
similar language.
Well, I'll help you out. This is what you need to do if you want to be a polylingual or a polyglot. You learned French, German, Russian, Iranian, or
Mhm.
Iraq, or Arabic. Arabic's probably maybe easier, and Chinese. So you have to really do is study 5 languages, and that will allow you to speak many. Like when I say I speak 18, or I read, well, mainly read and write 18 languages, that's not actually impressive.
Mhm.
Right? Some of the dudes in my field, they literally can interact and comprehend with 50, 60, 80 languages, dude. 100
That's crazy.
languages. My 18 is not actually that impressive. And the
I wonder how
main,
many. I wonder how many Tolkien could do. I have
oh,
no idea.
he
Somebody
was a
probably knows.
true philologist, dude. I can't imagine. Probably all of them. But because I've actually, in a way, stunted myself because I do speak the European, or at least read and write the European ones, and of course I picked up the Asian ones here. But mainly, most of my study is with dead languages. We don't even know what sounded like.
Right.
I mean, I can't even tell you what these languages sounded like. We can make a guess, but we don't have any clue. So by doing that, by putting so much of my focus in ancient dead languages, because of my study, I've actually limited myself. You know, but language is it's not as rough as you think. Like we had Shabby on the show on Drone Recorder Ultimate Edition. We had he and Boosters Obsidian. And I asked Shabby a little question. Of course, I asked a question I knew the answer to, but I just wanted to sneak in if I could. And I asked him, dumb question. What do Czech people speak? Well, actually, they speak Czech. But because I wanted to hear it, because my ultimate goal was the Slavic languages, they can understand each other, right? But
Yeah.
there are differences, and I wanted to understand the nuance. And he gave me a perfect example of speaking Czech and then speaking the same phrase in Polish. And it
Hmm.
gave this, and the Polish is so much more flowery and smooth and rounded, and the Czech is much more staccato and sharp, but the
Mm.
words are the same, really,
Yeah.
right? And I
It's
thought
pretty
that was
nuts,
pretty
isn't it?
interesting. Yeah, it was cool, dude. And I guarantee you, Shabby probably speaks five to eight
He does.
languages.
He
Yeah,
speaks 5. Yeah.
yeah, at least.
Um. Yeah. In America, that's really impressive. But like you said, a lot of other places, it's just either
It's
normal or not
normal,
that abnormal that it's not impressive.
right?
Um. But the problem is, Chester, is that's starting to go away.
I hope so.
I was talking about the Cherokee uh, not wanting their language to die out, and the Irish not wanting their old Irie to die out.
Sure.
Um, that's going away because English is taking over everything. Everything. Well, to the
It
point
is.
now, I mean, 25 years ago when I was in Israel, everything's in English. I mean, it's in both, but it's there. Every one of the road
Oh yeah,
signs, every menu, all of it was in English as well.
sure. That's
And it
worldwide
wasn't
now.
just Israel.
It's
Yeah, it wasn't
worldwide.
just Israel.
Yeah, it's worldwide. Yeah,
It's a
everyone.
problem. I don't like it. I don't personally like it, and I'm a native English speaker. You'd think I would
Well,
love it because then I can go other places with little trouble, but I don't like it. I think culture is important, and I don't want to watch them degrade under the weight of a super language that kind of unites the world. I think that's a bad thing for everybody.
yeah. Well, I don't. Being a language teacher, I would probably disagree. But there's three constants that have come into the world. Two of them are character based. The
Mm,
Arabic numerals and the Roman letters have become ubiquitous. Everyone uses
mhm.
them. Any place you go, any place in the world you go, they're going to use the Arabic numerals, right?
Yes.
Now they're going to pronounce them in their language, but they're going to write the Arabic ones. And the Roman numerals are also ubiquitous. Once again, they might be writing it in their own language. They're not. It's not English or French or German per se, but they're using the Roman letters. This is across the entire planet. And the third one is that business started becoming more and more global again
Hmm.
in the past 100 some odd years. And as that went by, it was just simply easier for people to communicate in a universal language. And the
Hmm.
British Empire had traveled so far and had, the locals in all those places had learned English to be able to interact with and deal with the British, right? That it was just the easy choice. And it wasn't even a choice, it just naturally happened. And that's why
Correct.
English is everywhere. Everybody speaks English now because it was the trade language. And now here we are a century later, and it's just, once again, ubiquitous. So
Well,
those, yeah,
what's funny to me is the reason why I don't like it is because I think it comes dangerously close to erasing cultures. One of the main reasons why,
it
like
is
the
troubling.
Cherokee and the Irish, are in other places too. But those are the two that come to my mind. Are fighting so hard to keep that alive is because they're afraid if they lose it, they'll
Yeah,
lose something of their culture. Kind of like Latin. We kind of have Latin, but we don't. Not really. You know what I mean?
sure.
It's one of those examples. And but regardless of that, um, it's kind of funny because I've been writing my book for a while, and I have a very similar thing because that's just what people do. And it's there was a time in different parts of the world where it was a different one, but pretty much every era that we know of where there was mass communication of some description, whether it's even just sailing to each other, that existed to some degree.
Sure.
There was
Oh,
some form of trade language at
there
all times.
always, always, yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on where you were. Of course, that was true because money is what motivates most actions, right? But
Yeah.
there are there are three languages that are not English that are essential. I couldn't do my job without them, and that is ancient Greek, Latin, and German. And
Mm,
those languages are extremely important because if you're, especially with the Greek and the German, if you're doing anything to do with medicine or science, you need to be able to speak those to a certain degree. And with me, in my translations and stuff I do, there's no way I could do my job without Latin, right?
right. Yeah.
My point being is these languages have become ubiquitous academically,
Right.
right? Like one of the things for my son, he was going to go to university and he wanted to get into engineering. So immediately I knew he needed to speak German because you can't be an engineer unless you understand a lot of German words, right? Because it's just simply the language of engineering. So I taught him German. And when he went into university, of course, he had to take German classes. And he was like, "Wow, how did you know?" God, children. But of course now the boys actually, because of my work and he's studious enough, he's actually a pretty solid German speaker, right? Speaker.
What's funny is I remember, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, a bunch of like economists and these futurists were predicting that by 2040 the trade language would be some kind of mixture between German and Chinese.
No.
And I was like, well, obviously that they were dumb. But it's funny you bring up how important German is because that was their argument. German's so important in that regard. The
Academically,
same
yeah.
exact thing you said, yeah,
Yeah.
academically,
Well,
that's why it would happen.
well, the Germans speak perfect English. all of them,
Yes.
right? And the reason, and Chinese could be an argument. I understand the argument, but here's the thing: the Chinese culture, not the individual. But then again, any conversation you have, you're talking about when you're talking about stereotypes, you're talking about the culture, the group, not the individual. Always. I don't know why that has to
Hmm.
be said all the time, but the reason why Chinese will never become an international language is because the Chinese think the rest of us are way too stupid to learn their language.
Yes.
Therefore, they learn Chinese. If you go to China, you're going to be able to communicate no problem, dude. You're going to be surrounded
Yeah.
by people who speak excellent English, better than the Japanese, actually. But
Yeah.
that's a cultural arrogance that plays out. So the Chinese are very happy and satisfied to work in English internationally. So it'll never happen. It'll never happen. And in all honesty, it would probably piss the Chinese off if large portions of the planet started speaking Chinese anyway.
Well, because they're, I don't like the word, but if any group of people embodies it, it would be the Chinese. They're racists. That's why
They
they
are.
they genuinely believe themselves to be superior to everybody else.
Well, it's the same thing we were talking about earlier with the Muslims. There's plenty of good. Matter of fact, the majority of Muslims are good, nice, normal people, just like any of your friends or neighbors or family. They're
Yeah.
fine. They're good people. But there's always those who take the bottom line, the edge of what they can get away with, like Vince McMahon, uh, and uh, and they run with it, right? So in
Yeah.
China, you have the same situation. There's plenty of great Chinese people, of course, but those who will run that bottom line, that what the base of what's accepted, it's very racist. It's very arrogant because the society has that old story that all of the humans come out of this dog man, right?
Right.
They're the only pure humans are Chinese, and the most Chinese don't believe that shit, but the ones who are riding that line do, and they take or they
Yeah.
don't, but they take advantage of it, and that's why you get things like there's a doctor who came out of a university. He's a historian over in China. It's a highly respected university. It's actually a pretty good one. And he is highly respected. And he came out with these series of articles in the past a couple of decades, few decades, and basically saying that after the 1800s, literally 1800, 1815, where something very weird happened on this planet we don't really have documented well. It was basically a bunch of volcanoes and stuff, I think, was what it comes down to. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But he's suggesting, and it's completely sponsored by the Chinese government, that after that, so like 1820s, 1830s, the banker groups under the auspice and power of the British went and built all of the things we point to as ancient Western history. For instance,
Mm.
they built the pyramids. It's mainly made out of concrete. Of course, it is because it's ancient concrete.
That's right.
The Pantheon, the Greek cultures, all those great Rome, all that stuff. It was built and put in place to trick the future, all of it. And it's like, well, thank you very much, Mr. Professor. You gave us a lot of credit. Damn. So you're saying in the course of
Wait.
like 80 years, we built every ancient site
Wait.
in the ancient world? Damn, dude, we're
Is this
badass,
the
man.
same? Is this the same cope that the Kangs black people do, where they
Yes,
say that the white man came and stole everything from the black man, and that's why it happened? Because that's why the white man was superior for so long because he
yes,
stole it from the black man first. And
same
I
thing.
just say, if you guys were superior, how the fuck did we pull that off?
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, thanks for the credit, dude. That's awesome. We're badass. But no, it's the same kind of nonsense. And the problem is, we have left from before the cataclysm are foundations, literally. And
Yeah.
those foundations fall into two groups: a very small group that literally had some global influence, and another group that was all over the world. Their
Right.
architectural building style is identical, so there's the same people. And or at least heavily interacting with each other, that the influence was identical. Um,
Sure.
but beyond those foundations, that's all we got. We don't have
Right.
any other actual evidence. And after the cataclysm, the people who kind of really brought information around and really reunified were those busy bee Aryans, right? That were just traveling
Mm.
all over the place, nomadic, going here, going there, and it wasn't even necessarily all their ideas. It was just this connectivity of culture was passing through them from one place to the next, and because of that, that's why Mesopotamia is essential in post-apocalyptic human story. It's all centered there, right? Now, what
Mhm.
happened before that cataclysm? Who knows? Maybe China was the original humans. Maybe they were the ones who built everything, and we took everything from them. We have no clue. It's possible. You
Sure.
know what I mean? So, but
It's also possible we came from the moon. Is it likely? No,
no,
but it's possible.
yeah. But I mean, but this is the kind of nonsense you get. And to give an example, because that is a form of racism, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, this is 100% promoted by the Chinese government. They go on about this all the time, that the West lies. Literally, we built the pyramids 100 some years ago just to trick them, just to take
Yes.
power away from China. And if you think about China, where they were 200 years ago, they were on their damn knees,
Literally. They
literally.
call it the century of humiliation or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were broken, literally broken by the Europeans. They
yeah.
were done.
And
They
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 did
were
have.
humiliated,
They were. And
humiliated.
and the reason the Europeans could do that is because when they came in, they were already on their knees.
Yeah,
And it's
they just didn't know it.
well, yeah, they were just very primitive, much more primitive than they were just a few centuries before, right?
Yes.
Because China's got a glorious history. Oh, amazing stuff came out of China for sure.
Oh yeah.
But this level of, as you say, copium from
Yeah.
modern China, and they do not shut up about it. I know you guys don't hear that in the West because you don't hear anything coming out of China, but they do not shut up. Because in my field, in the archaeological anthropological fields, they are noisy, on and on about how the West lies, and they're just trying to take the honor of China, and China's the true beginning, and all man came out of China. My God, dude, they are noisy.
Listen,
Yeah.
China. China, you're a great country. Amazing history, amazing heritage. Maybe the most historic country around. But you're also full of shit. And you want to talk about the crimes of the West? What you've done to your own people for the last 100 years is abominable.
It
There
is.
is nothing we could have done to you that's equivalent to that.
Right.
Nothing.
But we also blame a lot on the government. Oh, the government's evil, and fair enough. But
Yeah,
it's also a mindset that allows that
that's right.
government to exist. Like for instance, when we had the Beijing Olympics, you realize they were going around to the mountainsides of Beijing, and they were spray painting the mountains green
Yeah,
because they looked too brown, and they didn't want to be shamed by the lack of green because of all their air pollution and stuff is a real reason. But that is the level of annoyance they have at not being the best, right? That this is the level of cultural arrogance, and every culture has their arrogance, of course. That's very true. But the Chinese, man, they take it to a whole nother level, dude.
yeah. Was it the Brits or the Germans who? Well, it was both of them technically, but one of them really humiliated them militarily, and they never got over that. I think it was the Germans, because they went over there for a little while too, because everybody did in that time,
Sure.
the 1800s
Same
especially.
with
Everybody was
Africa. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, everybody was rushing into China to try and chop up pieces of it, and I think it was the Germans. They went over there with a very small force comparatively, and just, I mean, it was pathetic. They
Spanked
stomped
them.
them
Yeah,
out.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think the British pissed them off more though, because the British were far more insidious. But then again, most of the problems of the past 200 years are really the British's fault.
yeah.
I mean, it's
I often blame the crown. It's
yeah,
the
no,
American in me.
Well, it's not even. It's just the truth. They make so much trouble because they're insidious. The Germans and others, they're more straightforward. You see, they just
Yeah,
we're coming and we're taking it, and if you wish to fight us, you may. We'll meet you here on this day, right?
honor.
But the British, they will smile and shake your hand, and the whole time stabbing you right in the frickin' back, right? And
Yep.
they've done this for a very long time. So I would imagine the Chinese probably hate the English more than anything.
I
Uh,
think it's why the British make such good legal philosophers
maybe
because they know what a bastard is
they do.
because they are one. They understand the concept of a Bulgarian bastard better than anybody because their culture is full of them. Even today they still have them with the what are they called? The hooligans, the soccer hooligans.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
They're bastards, man. They're
they
just
are.
bastards,
They are.
and that's just how they've built an unbelievable society over there with this bastardness,
Yeah.
all over it. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're such good philosophers. Because I've said it on here, Western society, especially America, and really all of it, was built by raiders and pillagers and
Oh, sure.
and pirates and burglars. That's who built this place.
Sure.
That's where we built our ideas off of it. We have these grand ideas of this great came down from heaven, and no, you weren't inspired by God. You were inspired by plunder. That's what you were inspired by,
Exactly.
and then you built laws around it so you wouldn't plunder each other. That was it. That's
And
all
then
it was.
and then the settlers came in later. Grimlock. You know what really pisses me off though, Grimlock?
What?
The fact that I get lumped into the word whites with the goddamn
White.
English.
Well, I don't know what to do for you there.
Because it's not a fair comparison. Those guys are frickin' invaders and conquerors. They are the
It's
enemy.
true. It's true. It's true.
Should
I have my white is mostly Austrian, so
Oh God,
well, yeah. So we just start world wars. It's fine.
you're the Germans that sit back and watch. Oh, look at that. Yeah, yeah. This is
Listen, we
quite
sit up
good.
in the mountains and we watch the world burn, and we're
Yeah.
fine with it. We got our area, and we're good.
They've killed another 100. Oh, I know. Yeah. So yeah, damn Austrians. But yeah, no, it just kills me that the white. Can they even define what the white is? I don't think so. Because they're clearly not the same people. That's like calling
Yeah.
Africans Africans. Huh?
Yeah, it's just a generic term. We really should just use European descent or European or Euro. But white's really more of an American
No,
thing
we have
because
words: Gaelic Celts, Nordic Celts,
yeah,
fucking
true.
Germans, and Slavs.
Fucking Germans. That's true, and we used to use those more often in America. Even around here, we have German America festivals and things like that. But this weird de-whitification, I'm going to call it, where while we're trying to supposedly decolonize a lot of things, brown things up, add more people of color into stuff.
Sure.
In order to do that, you first must to define what they're not. And the only way for them to define what they're not is to lump together all the things that they're not into one term. And that's largely where it comes from. At least the vitriolic version of it, right? When the government was using it, it was just an easy descriptor to delineate the people because the white population, the European descendant population, was such a massive majority for so long that it just was easier to just do it that way.
Sure.
And they didn't delineate between a German, or at least my whole life they haven't.
Right.
They didn't delineate between a German and an Italian or a German and an Irish because we're supposed to all be Americans, but because certain groups want to cling to their racial identities for various reasons, some of it's valid. That is what drives it into that camp. I
No,
don't
that's
particularly like it either, but as long as they're going to put me over here and demonize me, then I'm going to own it. I'm going to wear that. I'll wear that badge until we can get back to sanity and just start, talking to people like they're, I don't know, human fucking beings.
Right. Well, no, that's true, and I rather like the way the American Indians do it, because if we're going to talk about the group, we're going to
Yep.
call them American Indians, just like Europeans.
Right.
But you don't. When it comes down to talking to an Indian, you're not talking to an American Indian. You're talking to a Lakota. You're talking
That's
to
right.
a Cheyenne. You're talking to
Tribal.
a Creek or what have you. So I
Mhm.
think they do it well. Well, you have this universal word, and then you have the word that they demand. Use I am this, and yes, you are. Right.
Correct. Yeah, I
But
like
but
that
we
too.
we don't
I always
force the
call them
delineation.
tribals,
That's
tribal
fine.
Americans. I think it's because technically, most American Indians don't give a shit,
No.
but there are some who will get their panties in a bunch. Usually, the ones who have lived with white people most of their life.
You know what pisses the word that really pisses me off, Grimlock. You know
What
what it
is it?
is?
I know.
First
I think I know.
Nation.
Yeah. First of what?
Fucking assholes. But
First
anyway,
Nation. Get out of
it's
here.
so
You weren't
stupid.
first to nothing. You
First to
weren't first to
nothing.
nothing. Get out of here.
Sure, the oldest human bones we find in the Americas are actually sitting in front of you. Yeah. But
Yes.
anyway, I do need to get to work, so I have to go. But that was fun. That was a nice Father's Day. Thank you for
It
coming and
was.
spending it with us. Hope you guys enjoyed. We do get all over the place and rant about this and that, but it's all in good fun, right? So come back tomorrow. We're going to do comic book stuff, and there's a lot to talk about. So that's good. Grimlock, you got anything to say before we get out of here, sir?
No, sir.
No, he
Just,
spoke out. All right,
yeah,
Thunderhammer,
I
take
know.
us out of here, man.
Since it's Daddy's Day, somebody in the chat said I need to do a dad joke. So I've got a perfect one because we were talking about Indians and things of this nature.
Knock, knock.
If April showers bring May flowers, what do Mayflowers bring? Pilgrims.
Oh,
That's it.
I'm not namasaying that. I'm not. I'm not namasaying that.
It's a
Later,
dad joke.
everybody. Later.